Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman is a retired Army Ranger, former West Point psychology professor, professor of military science, who's combined his experience to become the founder of a field of scientific endeavor, which has been termed killology. In this field, Colonel Grossman has made revolutionary new contributions to our understanding of killing and war, the psychological costs of war, the root causes of the current virus of violent crime that is raging around the world, as well as the process of healing the victims of violence and war peace. It's an honor to be able to have him here, especially today on September 11th. But please join me in welcoming Colonel Grossman.
Hoorah! Thanks, guys. Thank you, guys. Hey, I appreciate that intro. I'm Dave. I'm a son of a cop. I'm an ex-buck sergeant, a paratrooper, Army Ranger, infantry company commander, West Point psych professor, author. My book on killing was nominated by the publisher for Pulitzer. Didn't win, just nominated. Translated into 8 languages now. On combat and on killing, both Marine Corps commandants required reading. Army and Air Force recommended reading after 14 years of war. As of today, we've really looked at 14 years of war. Some of us out here remember peacetime military. Not many. Peacetime military was kind of like a football team, never played a game year after year. A lot of nonsense, a lot of wishful thinking accumulates over peacetime. But our armed forces today is the end product of the daily acid test of 14 years of war. And they're flat out magnificent. I know it's hard sometimes. You see the bumps and the wrinkles and the flaws, and you say, we're the best there is, we're in big trouble. So it's good stuff, and it's an honor to be of service. That's who I am, that's what I do. And I'm on the road almost 300 days a year training military and law enforcement. I'm the only law enforcement trainer certified in all 50 states. I train every federal agency. And I had the honor to train all branches of the armed forces and all of our Tier 1 spec ops across the board. And what I want to ask you right up front is, what the hell are we doing in this war? What are we doing? Well, 14 years ago, they came and murdered 3,000 of our citizens. What are they going to do next? We don't know. If we knew what the terrorists was going to do, we'd be waiting for them that they wouldn't succeed. By definition, the successful terrorist attack is the one we're not ready for yet. But I think we can predict future behavior based on past behavior. And that's the foundation of resiliency. Predict future behavior based on past behavior. A serial killer has an MO. He bind, torture, kill the last 3 victims. What do you want to bet? He'll do the same with the next one. Yeah? If we can predict future behavior based on past behavior, I'll give you a pretty good shot at when the terrorists will hit again and where they'll hit. When are they going to do it? Well, you know, we sit down over beer with the Vietnamese generals. We do. People try to kill in Vietnam today. We sit and talk over beer. And they tell us the one thing they knew they must never do during the war in Vietnam is launch terrorist attacks on America. They were mad. We were carpet bombing their cities. In World War II, Japan and Germany turned inside out to try to bring the war to America. But the North Vietnamese knew they would win the war politically. They knew any terrorist attacks on America would be completely counterproductive, and they were right. 1979, Russia goes into Afghanistan. The Russians' enemy had the exact same policy. For 10 years, Russia was brutal. Russia exterminated whole portions of Afghanistan, and they waited patiently for 10 years for Russia to leave, and then it was their turn. They knew they would win politically. They knew terrorist attacks on Russia would renew their will, and they were right. They're doing the exact same thing again. When are they going to hit us again? When the last troops leave Afghanistan? Or if they think we're never going to leave? Or if somebody gets tired of waiting, all of which means any day now. Yeah? So what are they going to do? Well, I'll tell you one thing, folks. The minute they get a nuke, they're going to use it. Russia had nukes for 50 years. The Soviet Union, and they never used them. Why? Because they knew we would exterminate them. It was our national policy to kill every living creature in Russia. They popped a single nuke on us, and we would have done it. Over 1,000 intercontinental ballistic missiles sitting in the silo, loaded with nukes, ready to go. Over 100 bombers loaded full of nukes, ready to go. If they snuck one in on us and nailed those guys on the ground, what was the third leg of that triad of deterrence? Everybody remember? the subs. There were enough nukes in the subs to kill every living creature in Russia all by themselves, and it worked. We were never truly in danger of being nuked. They were deterred. Our current enemy is not remotely deterred. What are we going to do to them? We ain't already done. As far as they're concerned, they have absolutely nothing to lose. The minute they get a nuke, they're going to try to use it. Pakistan is not our friend. Pakistan is a barely controlled conglomerate of mutual interests, and Pakistan has over 100 nukes. They build them as fast as they can. Just a matter of time until Baghdad gets one of those nukes. Iran is scary. A lot of people think Iran's trying to build nukes. North Korea's got nukes. And North Korea is nuttier than a squirrel turd. Yeah. It's just a matter of time until the Baghdad gets a nuke. Oh, they're going to pop it off in the ionosphere, and an electromagnetic pulse. Get that stuff out of your head. We've got to prepare for that possibility. But folks, it's never been proven. They don't have a delivery system. They're going to pop it off in a rinky-dinky boat a half-mile offshore of San Diego. Can we stop every little boat a half-mile off San Diego? It don't have to be very big. Remember, the first nukes fit in a B-29. Will we stop every little boat a half-mile offshore San Diego? And folks, the fallout always goes east. Hits the jet streams and goes east. If they pop it off anywhere in the East Coast, the fallout goes into the Atlantic. Now, they'd love to get in the Great Lakes, but there's unclassified data that would tell us if you try to go in someplace confined, a good chance we'll spot a nuke. They probably won't try that one. If they do it on the East Coast, probably somewhere in the Gulf. Pop a nuke off half-mile offshore of Galveston or New Orleans. A radioactive tidal wave will take big chunks of Galveston, New Orleans, Pensacola, all the way down to Tampa off the map, and radioactive rain will fall across the southern U.S. But the best bet would be the West Coast. And I think number one on the list would be a half-mile offshore of San Diego. Pick the right time, and a radioactive tidal wave will wash 2 aircraft carriers off the map, San Diego Naval Base, the Coronado Seal Basin. All they want to hurt the seals. And a big chunk of San Diego will disappear in a radioactive tidal wave, and radioactive rain will fall all across America. The minute they get a nuke, they're going to do it. They cannot be deterred. We will not win this war with nukes. They can only be hunted down and killed. And the price of failure is unthinkable. Now, folks, I sincerely believe we've never been more likely to suck up a nuke, or we've never been less ready. Folks, they're going to use Ebola. It's just a matter of time. We live in the age of the suicide biobomber. Infect a bunch of volunteers with Ebola, or whatever the appropriate disease is a couple years from now, whenever they're ready. Today, Ebola would be perfect. Give them a big stack of cash and send them across the border. Can we stop every infected person coming across the border? The day will come when we stop every living creature trying to come across that border. Now, folks, 14 years ago, America woke up and made a major change. But we didn't even make a tiny fraction of the changes that are coming. Now, Ebola is not infectious till you're in the symptomatic phase. It is if you have sex with them. We know that. A big, wet, sloppy kiss would probably do the job. Come across the border, have sex with as many prostitutes as you can, give them a big, sloppy, wet kiss for fun, and then try to figure out everybody that prostitute had contact with for the last 20 days. Go ahead, try to figure it out. And once you get infectious, once you start running a fever, spit on your hands, walk through the city, slime every doorknob, every handrail. It's coming. They cannot be stopped. They can only be hunted down and killed around the planet. These are things that I think are almost inevitable, that they will try to do these things. And all we can do is hunt them down across the planet and stop them before they do. But if we predict future behavior based on past behavior, the thing they're most likely to do is come kill our kids. School massacres. Around the planet, the thing they do the most is school massacres. Folks, 1970, Israel, a school bus was wiped out. Folks, there's almost 500,000 school buses in America. When you hear about the first school bus full of dead kids, pray there's just one. If there's one, it's probably a homegrown wackos, like Sandy Hook. But remember on 9/11 when the first plane hit the first tower, and we knew it had to be some kind of weird accident? When the second plane hit the second tower, it knew it was an act of war. When you hear about the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th school bus full of dead kids, you know it's an act of war. 1974, Israel, the Ma'alot massacre. They set a standard that has been followed ever since. They took an Israeli school hostage. The Israelis counterattacked. The terrorists did not have time to execute every child, but they had time to shoot virtually every kid. 70 wounded, 26 dead in a school in Israel. From that day on, every school in Israel has been a fortress. Turkey tells us, and I trained the Turkish police, Turkey tells us in their battles against the terrorists, 80s and 90s, over 300 schools were attacked. Algeria, 80s and 90s, same story. Hundreds of schools attacked. Folks, in Iraq, we saw suicide bomber after suicide bomber in schools. Then we saw a chlorine bomb in a girls' school. Chlorine, they used that in the trenches in World War I. You blow up a tank of chlorine, it eats your eyes, it eats your lungs. Hitler, at his worst, did not use chemical weapons on the battlefield, and they used chemical weapons against their own girls in their own school in their own nation. Think they won't do it to us? Indonesia, the largest Islamic nation in the world, and I trained Indonesian police, gave me a nice award. One case in Indonesia, 3 little schoolgirls were beheaded on the way to school. Their little headless bodies are left in the middle of the trail to school, and their little heads were placed in 3 different locations as a signal to anybody that dares to teach anything other than their brand of religion. Google it. Indonesia, schoolgirl beheaded, come right up. Across southern Thailand, when it joins Malaysia, heavy Islamic population. Public schools have been shut down for years. The schools still open in southern Thailand have armed teachers and armed parents in the school 24/7, like Israel. Thailand's found out the only way you keep your schools open is armed teachers and armed parents in the school 24/7. Afghanistan. In 2009 alone, we had 600 reported attacks on schools and school children in Afghanistan in 1 year alone. 600 attacks on schools and school children. Their own kids, their own schools, their own nation in 1 year. You think they won't do it to us? In Pakistan, December 16th, last December, just before Christmas, they wiped out a school in Pakistan. Pakistan was getting serious about clearing some of the folks out around the border, so they sent them a message. They want to send you a message, they come kill your kids. They hit a school in Pakistan December 16th. The following day, the 140 dead kids. The following day, every single school in Pakistan was shut. They impacted the daily behavior of every family, every community, every child in their nation. How? By peeing in the water, by coming to kill the kids. Now, how many people here have heard about the attack on Pakistan? A tiny handful, just a minority. Folks, freaking Ferguson's on the news night after night. But the major media outlets never mentioned this attack in Pakistan. Google it, Pakistan school massacre, look it up. Folks, the second most horrendous school massacre in human history. One of the greatest body counts achieved on the ground last year, and they didn't even talk about it. The media didn't want to think about it. The bad man's gone, leave us alone. The bad man is not gone. And very, very bad times are coming, and we can look around the planet and see what they're doing. So folks, let's talk about what they did to Russia, because that's important. Osama bin Laden tried very hard never to lie. And Osama bin Laden flat told us that Russia is our future. So Russia leaves Afghanistan, then it was their turn for major terrorist attacks, and the first thing they did was the Nordos Theater. Some of you may have heard of that theater massacre and the siege and what happened there. Now, what most people don't know, it was a children's production. The cast was children, the audience was children. The children of Moscow. This is who they came to kill. Folks, and then September 1st, Beslan, September 1st, 2004, Beslan. They came to a school in Russia, B-E-S-L-A-N, and they took the kids hostage. Now, I want you to understand how this came out. I think there's value in examining this. And what happened was, we see the layout of the school here, and we can zoom in a little bit here. It's the first day of school, And the kids are out front in this northern courtyard. Now, the terrorists have people in place ahead of time. The terrorists have a couple of people with concealed weapons blocking the exits to the gym ahead of time, in position. Several vehicles full of terrorists pull up, bail out, and fire over the heads of the crowd. Now, some of you may have heard that it's a middle school. In Russia, a middle school means first grade through 11th grade. And in the first couple of minutes of the attack, a lot of the bigger kids got out. And a lot of the bigger kids weren't even there. But the little kids were being herded into the gym like cattle. And the exits were blocked by armed terrorists. They go in, they don't go out. Now listen, folks, for the first 15 minutes, half the perimeter is being held by a handful of terrorists with concealed weapons. I want you to think about this. There's a time in the first 5, 10, 15 minutes of every attack, one or two well-trained people, concealed weapons, will shoot the idiot blocking the exit, and they will escape like air out of a balloon. You understand that? Because they do. That's why they can't do this to Israel. They would do it daily to Israel if they can, but Israel has found the only possible answer: armed people everywhere. Armed people everywhere. They hate concealed carry. They actively fear concealed carry. Identify the places where concealed carry is not allowed, and understand those are the places that are most likely to hit. And across America, on the top of that list is the schools. Now, folks, I teach school safety nationwide, and there's things we need to do, like have that freaking doors locked all the time, have the classroom doors locked all the time, have the laminate film on the windows. You see, I tell you, on the top of that list of places to kill is the schools in and around our military bases. For 14 years, headed our way. For 14 years, we hunted them down across the planet and killed them with impunity. Now it's their turn, and they're going to come kill the kids. And we've got to take those schools and make them a hard target, because this is the price of failure. This is the price of failure in this war. These are terrorists. They don't meet you head to head on the battlefield. They come around the flank and murder your family and murder your children. So September 1st, 2004, Bestland, 1,000 kids were trapped in the gym. And they will live and suffer and die in this gym for the next 3 days. Every adult male present was dead in the first half hour. They were executed in front of their children's eyes. If you're an adult male in a situation like this, you fight from the beginning, because you will die on your knees in front of your children's eyes, first thing. And then for the next 3 days, they began to torture the children to death by the most effective manner: no water. Folks, this is a school. There's water fountains and bathrooms everywhere. There were cases of bottled water the Russians were delivering over the next 3 days to give the hostages, and they wouldn't give them a drink. They wouldn't give them a single drop of water. Nobody in this room has gone 24 hours without water. What's it feel like on the third day without a drop of water? 1 day away from death by dehydration. They were simply torturing the kids to death by the most effective and brutal and agonizing manner. I'll tell you what it feels like on the third day without water. On the first day, they're urinating and defecating their shoes, says somewhere to put it. By the third day, they're digging into the moist shit and eating the moist shit to have some kind of moisture in their mouth. They're mad with thirst. They're insane with thirst. They're 1 day away from death by dehydration. But they knew the Russians wouldn't give them that day. Somebody should have been jamming every cell phone frequency, every radio and TV frequency. They were listening to the news, and they had people outside contacting them by cell phone. And on the morning of the third day, the Russian Tier 1 Spec Ops had finally showed up. And the morning of the first day, they take the kids hostage. Morning of the second day, 48 hours later, on the morning of the third day, the Tier 1 Spec Ops begin to come on scene. Alpha and Vimple, their Delta Force, and their SEAL Team 6, CAG and Dev Group, yeah? Time was working for the terrorists right up to this point. They had all the time in the world. They were busy little beavers. They never stopped hardening the target. They barricaded and booby-trapped every ground floor window, every ground floor entrance. They built machine gun bunkers that dominated every stairwell and barriers at every step of the way. But on the morning of the third day, time was running against them. And so The kids are trapped in the gym. You ever seen one of those little gyms? You're 9 inches out of bounds, you smack it on the wall. The basketball backboard is strapped to the wall with a little spacer. That's a gym where 1,000 kids are packed together, and a huge bomb was rigged to each of the basketball backboards. On the morning of the third day, one of the bombs on the backboard went off, blasting children out the windows. 6 seconds later, the bomb on the other backboard went off, blasting children out the windows. Was it an accident? Could have been. The bomb was rigged to a foot pedal, a dead man switch. Take your foot off the pedal, the bomb goes off. But I think they did it on purpose. It was perfect timing. Because that point on, it just would get worse for them. The Russian Tier 1 Spec Ops were just on scene. They didn't have a plan. You don't just hit the ground and attack. Got to make a plan. Many of them didn't have their body armor. They didn't have their helmets. Their most elite Spec Ops, without a plan, without body armor, without helmets, launched a spontaneous helter-skelter attack. And it was a brutal, desperate 10-hour room-to-room nightmare. A 10-hour room-to-room war. When the smoke finally cleared 10 hours later, when the nightmare finally ended 10 hours later, they believe 49 terrorists were neutralized one way or the other. They believe 12 of the 49 escaped. They had an escape plan from the very beginning. They went to enormous effort to get these people out. Why did they do that? They don't usually do that. I think you'd make a very good argument they will be the cell leaders for the attacks on America. 21 of Russia's most elite Spec Ops were dead. Imagine FBI, HRT, CAG, DevGru losing 21 operators on one mission. And the hostages? The final count from Russia tells us 314 of the hostages have been murdered. The vast, vast majority of them children. And you know what killed most of the kids? The bombs? No. The guns? No. Somebody somehow lit the gym on fire. 1,000 kids are trapped in a burning building, and the terrorists gunned down the river that tried to escape. Now, the gym's on fire somehow, and people in these second floor windows were slaughtering everybody that tries to escape. Of the 314 murdered, almost all of them children, over 200 were killed by the fire. Or like 9/11, crushed to death when the building collapsed because of the fire. Over 1,000 were hospitalized. Every single child needed immediate hospitalization and IVs for dehydration. Many were within hours of death. And the survivors would rather be dead. The people sat on the perimeter did nothing for 3 days, where their families were raped and murdered. They wish they were dead. The suicides rack up on a steady basis. And a nation is stunned to their soul. Is that what they're going to do to us? We don't know. Nobody knows the future. But this is what they've done to every single nation they've ever messed with. They know it's the most economically, psychologically devastating thing they can do. And Osama bin Laden flat promised us Russia is our future. Now here's the interesting thing about Beslan. You know, the Chechens, Chechnya, has been giving Russia hell. But of all the attacks I launched on Russia, this wasn't the Chechens. It was in large part what the Russians call Arab terrorists. It was in large part Al-Qaeda trained, Al-Qaeda planned, Al-Qaeda financed. Why? Of all the things they did to Russia, why was Osama bin Laden's guys all over this one? I think to make a very good argument, it's a dress rehearsal what they're planning to do to us. And we saw them exercise it December 16th in that school in Pakistan. But when they do it, I believe they hit as many schools as they can. And folks, they're not coming to the high schools. The enemy learns their lessons. Those 3 Americans on the train in France, yeah? What's the lesson? Don't try to attack when big Americans are around, yeah? Those high school football players are big, tough kids. All it takes one big, tough high school athlete to blindside the tackler, the hands-hold attack. No, I tell you folks, they're probably not coming to the high school. The lone jackal can pop up anytime, and don't call them lone wolves. But the lone jackal threat is the worst it's ever been. And like the Boston Marathon bombers. And folks, they could easily hit a school, but they'll probably just do one. And folks, it happened in Brazil. Look it up, Buenos Aires. In Brazil, a school massacre. The guy grew up Muslim, he got radicalized online. He went to his old middle school and murdered a dozen kids. He didn't go to his high school. I think, though, they'll hit as many elementary schools as many daycare centers as possible. Daycares are rare in their culture. Where they appear, they attack them. And Kabul, Afghanistan, last year, a daycare center was attacked. Well, folks, you want a weapon of mass destruction? Here's a weapon of mass destruction: fire. On 9/11, they intentionally picked aircraft at the beginning of their flights. Why? Packed full of fuel. On 9/11, fire and collapse of the structure because of the fire did most of the killing, yes? In Bestland, fire and collapse of the structure because of the fire did most of the killing. The cartels in Mexico, and the cartels are a whole different story. I trained the Border Patrol, I trained the DEA. The cartels are as evil as ISIS ever dreamed of being. ISIS will kidnap your reporter, cut his head off, and send you the video. Funny how the media stayed neutral throughout this whole war, yeah? We got to be objective observers, but cut a reporter's head off, suddenly everything changes, yeah? Well, the cartels are smart enough not to cut an American reporter's off. The cartels will kidnap your spouse, saw her head off, and send you the video. They're as evil as ISIS ever dreamed of being, and they come at us like a freight train. They just kicked Mexico's tail. Yeah, the body count's down in Mexico because Mexico gave up. It's too easy to just take the bribe and back off and let them have their way. And they're coming at us like a freight train, folks. That's my law enforcement side of the world, a whole different angle. But here's the point. The greatest body count the cartels have achieved was a casino fire in Monterrey, Mexico. Shut down the sprinkler system ahead of time. The sprinkler shut-off is a critical part of the equation. Shut down the sprinkler system, block the exits to a casino in Monterrey, Mexico, walk in the front door, dump a can of gas, drop a match, and walk away. Over 100 people are dead. The greatest body count the cartels have inflicted fire. So folks, let me tell you what I think the next 9/11 is going to look like. Some dark morning, they're going to hit as many elementary schools, as many daycare centers as possible. You want a weapon of mass destruction? Dump a 5-gallon can of gas in a classroom. Pack 100 kids in that classroom, standing in a puddle of gas. Drop a match. 100 first graders and kindergartners standing in a puddle of gas. Drop a match, shut the door, and walk away, and they're all dead. I tell my cops, you give them 10 minutes in their school, and 100 kids are standing in a puddle of gas waiting to die. You can't give them 10 minutes. You can't give them 5 minutes. Now, law enforcement is adapting. Well, there was a while there when they were teaching the 4-officer response. Then they found out no massacre was ever stopped by 4 cops. Anytime a massacre stopped, it stopped with the first 1 or 2 cops on scene going in like thunder. And we're teaching solo officer response nationwide. Hey, by the way, this is important. Why did the Russians wait 3 days? For the first 15, 20 minutes, half the perimeters were being held by a handful of terrorists with concealed weapons. 1 or 2 rifle-armed first responders in the first 15 minutes, and the hostages would have escaped like air out of a balloon. Why did they give them 3 days to harden the target and torture the victims? Why didn't the Russian police go in immediately? Why? Because it wasn't their job. They don't have the training. Half the Russian police don't even have real guns. They've got goofy little tear gas guns. The half that have real pistols don't have extra magazines. The very idea of an extra magazine is alien to them. Most of them have never fired more than 50 rounds in their life. It would have been worse than Barney Fife staggered in the front door. Nobody expected the cops to go in. They were waiting for the military to come save their kids. England, folks, I trained the British SAS and the Special Boat Service and the Royal Marine Commandos. When this happens in England, not if, when it happens in England, the unarmed bobbies are useless. The unarmed police officers are an oxymoron. They're an abomination. And they know it. The unarmed bobbies are useless when the enemy comes to destroy their way of life, and they know it. They just can't get it changed. But the British SAS is standing by. They got a team of elite commandos constantly ready to bounce in anywhere in England in 2, 3, 4, 6 hours. If you're lucky in 1 or 2 locations, by then it's over. The idiot on the island in Norway. Remember the guy on the island off Norway? Study that one. He attacked a youth camp off Norway. He murdered 70 people, almost all of them children. 70 dead, 120 wounded. The all-time solo gun massacre in history. They had a federal team standing by. You local pissants don't need guns. We'll be there. We have a federal response team standing by. An hour and a half later, that guy owned that island for an hour and a half. The all-time record solo gun massacre in history. Because they were waiting for the federal response team. Around the world, when this happens, It's a military's job. We're elite federal troops. We're elite federal police teams, with a couple exceptions. One major exception is Israel. They've learned in 50 years of war, the only answer is armed people everywhere charging toward the sound of the guns from every direction. Another major exception is America, posse comitatus. By law, the military cannot get involved until Congress gives them the authority. The local police are the Delta Force. They are the Green Beret. Our strength is that we have given the responsibility and the tools right down to the lowest level. And it's their job to go on like thunder, and they don't have a choice. If a cop stands there and does nothing while children are murdered, what do you call that? Cowardice. Their election of duty, deliberate indifference, blood on their hands. Do you understand that we're at war? And do you understand that our cops are the frontline troops in this war? They're psychologically, professionally destroyed human beings if they don't go in, yes? And in the middle of that, people are trying to gut and disarm our cops. Think about that. We're at war. They're the frontline troops in this war. In the very near future, the people attacking our cops will look like the biggest idiots on the face of the planet. When they come to murder the children, when we realize we're at war and they're the frontline troops, those idiots will crawl back in their slimy little holes and try to pretend they never said that stupid stuff. It will be a teachable moment. But folks, I just want you to understand that around the planet, it's somebody else's job, but here it's the local police's job. And in your case, it's going to be the first responders right here on base, ready to go in like thunder, and you better be ready. And so, folks, on some dark day, they're going to attack as many daycare centers, many elementary schools as possible. And they'll slaughter the children in the schools, and the survivors will flee into the parking lot. And 15 minutes later, when all the emergency vehicles in the parking lot, 15 minutes later, the terrified parents and the survivors in the parking lot, what's going to happen in the parking lot? Boom. Somebody out there's got thousands of pounds of ammonium nitrate. Fertilizer goes boom. The feds tell us that somebody out there's got lots and lots of vehicle-borne IDs ready to go. They got the material. There's only 2 weapons of mass destruction we know they got. There's only 2 weapons of mass destruction they've used repeatedly. Fire and the vehicle-borne ID. And between the slaughter in the school and the daycare center and the bombs in the parking lot, it's entirely possible. They'll get triple digits in daycare centers and schools across America, God forbid. And if they do, I tell you, not a parent in the nation will send their kid to school the next day. Not a parent in the nation will send their kid to daycare the next day. 9/11, they hijacked 4 planes. What do we do? We shut every airport in North America. Last December, they wiped out a school in Pakistan. What'd they do? They shut every single school in Pakistan. Folks, 50 million school-age kids will be loose in the streets. 30 million preschoolers will be loose on the streets. Daycare shut, schools shut. Millions of parents will drop out of the workforce. They will modify the daily behavior of every single child, every family, every community in America by peeing in the water, by coming and killing our kids. And so, folks, I bring you a message from a young Green Beret a month after 9/11. Remember what it's like a month after 9/11? The World Trade Center is still smoldering rubble. We're still estimating 4,000 dead. Remember those days? Never forget, never forget. I'm training the first batch of Spec Ops headed off to Afghanistan. Young Special Forces Sergeant, young Green Beret comes up to me and they said, "Colonel, we're going to Afghanistan. We're going to kick their ass." He said, "While we're there, you tell all those cops you teach, don't let them come kill my kids. Don't you let those bastards come kill my kids." I've been passing that message on to my cops for 14 years. I tell them that our troops are magnificent. They're 100% wartime volunteers. 4 years into this war, there was nobody left who enlisted or re-enlisted before the war. For the last 10 years of this war, every single person in our armed forces has raised the right hand to enlist or re-enlist in time of war. The last time we fought a war with 100% wartime volunteers was the American Revolution. Started in 1812, we always had people that enlisted before the war, got stuck with the war. For the longer wars, we always had the draft. Our armed forces today is the best it has ever been, 100% wartime volunteers. And I tell my cops they believe in what they're doing. I admit, I'm biased. My son is Air Force combat controller with 7 combat tours. His young E4 right out of the pipeline when the invasion of Afghanistan hit, was there in the front lines. And he's been in Afghanistan and Iraq every step of the way. My son came home from his 3rd combat tour just in time to be there. His first baby was born, our 3rd grandchild. I told him it's good to be there when the baby's born, yeah? It's even better to be there when the baby's conceived. Little piece of hard-earned Army wisdom for you there, eh? You know what's best of all? For that baby to have a safe and free nation to live in. That's what a daddy's fighting for. Folks, we've kept them off our back for 13 years with the blood and the lives over there. They're doing to us what they did to Russia. They're waiting for us to get sick of the war and go home, and then it's their turn. Now, they might give up any day. There's all kinds of variables in this equation, but I think there can be no doubt. You kept them to hell off our back with your blood and your lives for 13 years. I'll tell you what else you did. You established the first Arab democracy the world's ever seen in Iraq. Yeah, it's a mess. Every democracy is a mess. Look at ours. Yeah? Now, technically, we're a republic. There's a difference. But folks, Winston Churchill said, democracies will drive you crazy. Churchill said, quote, democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others. Yeah? And folks, I'm a graduate of the British Staff College. As a young Army major in 1993, instead of going to Leavenworth, Kansas a year, I got to go to England a year. That was a good deal. Now, this is 1993. The Soviet Union has collapsed. The Warsaw Pact has collapsed, and they've all become democracies. Democracy is sweeping across the planet, except the Arab world. The only part of the world that has never had an elected government is the Arab world. Just think Morocco, Libya, Egypt, Syria, Iraq, all the little places in between. That's the Arab world. Now, this is a British Staff College. We had the representatives of 52 nations there. Most of the major Arab nations were there. They're young majors, hand-selected to represent their nation. These are our friends for a year. Every day over coffee and a break, every night over beer in the mess, we'd ask them, oh, what's it all about? Why are there no Arab democracies? And always the same answer. It's our culture. Arabs won't vote. Arabs don't want democracy. There'll never be an Arab democracy. You've got to respect our culture. How do you argue with that? You create an Arab democracy. Millions of Iraqis risk their lives to go vote. How many Americans would risk their lives to go vote? Millions of Iraqis dipped their finger in that purple ink that made them a target for the next month. How many Americans would do that? And they held those purple fingers up to the world. And around the Arab world, they said Arabs will vote, Arabs can vote. We want that too. Folks, you never saw a more clear-cut relationship of cause and effect relationships in human history. The democracy in Iraq and the potential for democracy sweeping through the Arab world. Will democracy take root? We don't know. But nobody can ever again say Arabs won't vote. There's 10,000 pissants in the media who will never give our military credit. But I tell you, it is obvious, just absolutely blatantly obvious what happened. We brought the sweet winds of liberty to a distant land. We shut down the nation. We shut down the caps. We kept them off our back with their blood and their lives. And this is the price of failure. Now, before I stop talking about Bestland, I commend your attention to a book, Terror at Bestland, by John Guyduck. It's the most gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching book you'll ever read. And somebody doesn't want us to read this book. Somebody has paid an enormous amount of money to shut down this author, shut down this book. They bought a website full of mall ninjas and goofballs, and they motivated them to attack this guy. They said, he's a phony, he's a fraud. He claims he's a Green Beret. He never claimed that. People say I'm a PhD, I correct them. People say he's Green Beret, he corrects them. But folks, that's all they got on him, and it's not true. And 4 years later, they're still popping up on Amazon.com and giving a negative review on a steady basis. Look it up. Look at all the goofball reviews that have nothing what to do with the book and false accusations of the individual. And folks, if he's laid on to speak anywhere, they deluge him with emails and phone calls. This man's a phony. This man's a fraud. I don't care how mad you are, you don't keep messing with them 4 years later if you're not being paid to do it. Even the goofballs on the website are starting to say, wait a minute, what's wrong here? Why are we still messing with this guy 4 years later? Somebody has paid an enormous amount of money and made an enormous effort to try to shut this man down and shut this book down. And whoever they are not our nation's friends. And so, folks, learn the lesson and apply it to the best of our ability. Our enemy is evil. Have you ever used the word evil? Use that what happened in that school in Russia, yes? Our enemy is evil. Our cause is just. Our sacrifice is for a noble and worthy purpose. That's the foundation of resiliency. That's the foundation which everything else is built. For 14 years, the media has tried to cut the legs off from under our troops. They've cut the legs off under the frontline troops for 14 years. And it's hard sometimes to remember what we're doing here. I train our wounded warrior battalions. And I speak to a whole battalion full of badly wounded troops, and they're being cared for and cycled through the process. I tell them what I just told you, our enemy is evil, our cause is just. Our sacrifice for a noble and worthy purpose. Many of them simply put their head in their arms and begin to cry. No leader has ever stood up to them and told them those powerful, essential, and affirming words. Our enemy is evil, our cause is just. Our sacrifice for a noble and worthy purpose. Who would not walk out that door and take a bullet for your kids? That's what you do every day. You walk out that door and you give 100%. Because if we fail, our legacy to our children will be darkness, death, and despair. You go home to your children and you look them in the eyes and you swear by all that's holy that our legacy to them will not be darkness, death, and despair. That we will not be the nation. We will not be the generation that fails to pass on to our children all the blessings bestowed upon us by our forefathers. Now, don't you cop a pity party on me. Don't you dare give up on our nation. You think this is bad. Look at 1812 when they burned Washington to the ground. Look at the Civil War when we killed her off by the hundreds of thousands. Look at the hell of the trenches of World War I. Look at World War II. We fought desperately for survival on two fronts. Look at the Cold War, Korea, Vietnam, thermonuclear holocaust hanging overhead decade after decade. There have been other hard times. We made it through those times as Americans stood up and sacrificed. And it's our turn to sacrifice. And walk out that door and you give 100%. Folks, I retired from the Army 18 years ago. I've been on the road for 18 years, almost 300 days a year. I love my high school sweetheart, my bride of 40 years. I love my grandbabies. I get home one, maybe 2 nights a week. Go visit, clean underwear, back on the road. I have an intense sense of urgency. And I implore you to share that sense of urgency and renew your dedication and to understand the price of failure. That's the foundation of resiliency. So we're going to study that toxic realm called combat. As a firefighter studies fire, we study violence. The firefighter fights fire, he seldom uses fire. We fight violence. What do we fight it with? Superior violence, righteous violence. Violence is our tool. Violence is our enemy. Violence is the realm we operate in. We must study it, or it will destroy us. And I begin this block of instruction with a photograph of a young police officer on his 3rd trip down from the World Trade Center 14 years ago today. At the end of this block of instruction, at the end of this morning, I'll put this photograph back up again, and you will look at this man and you will tell me what is not happening in that man's head. Now, that don't make sense, but don't worry, by the end of the day it will. I'll make you experts on the physiology of fear. Right now, I just want to ask you a question. When they woke up on that awful morning 14 years ago today, when they were sitting there eating their Wheaties at 6 o'clock in the morning on 9/11, did they ever in a million years dream they would have to do this? No. They had no warning. And yet they rose to the challenge, yes? We've had all the warning in the world, folks. We had the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, United Flight 93. We had Bestland. We had daily bombings around the planet. You know, they would joyfully do here. We've had all the warning in the world. And if you're pissing your time away, if there's simple things we could and should be doing, and we don't do it, then all these lives were lost for nothing. The rest of our nation's already forgotten 9/11. Leave us alone. Go away. The bad man's gone. The bad man is not gone. They can get on with their lives, but we may not pretend the bad man's gone. And we burn it into our souls. Their moment of truth will not be found wanting. Well, folks, we started that toxic realm then. You know, I told you that Special Forces sergeant that says, don't let them come kill my kids. Tell the cops you teach, don't let them come kill my kids. I've been telling that to cops for 14 years. Then a crusty old Chicago PD sergeant came up to me. He said, Colonel, you tell these guys, we got their six, we got their back. We can't be everywhere. You tell them, you tell them, hunt the bastards down over there. We'll do the best we can over here. And every day they don't attack us is a victory. Every day they don't attack us is a victory. And so we studied that realm called combat. And my story begins at Normandy Beach in World War II. A team of psychiatrists landed on Normandy Beach, and they studied what's happening to the troops in combat. Now, after 60 days of continuous day and night combat, stop there, 60 days of continuous day and night combat is a very rare thing. Folks, Gettysburg was 3 days, they took the nights off. World War I, we had day-night combat for months on end. We quickly learned we had to rotate people on the front lines. But at Normandy Beach, there were no rear lines. Obviously, many dead, many wounded. But of those who were left, after 60 days, 98% had become psychiatric casualties. Many dead, many wounded. But of those who were left, 98% were literally driven crazy by combat. They were not destroyed for life, give them a break. Most get their feet back in the ground. At least temporarily, 98% of those who were left after 60 days, their mind was the weak link. You with me on that? All right, now, you know, my cops and my security forces and the guys back here say, all that combat stuff is interesting. Does it really apply to people back here? Well, that's a good question. So, folks in the law enforcement community, every year, somewhere between 50 and 80 cops are murdered in the line of duties. Now, I want you to understand something. Again, this is kind of my cop side of the world. I think you'll find it of value. If we had 1970s technology, the murder rate would be 4 times what it is. Medical technology is holding down the murder rate, yes? The sneaky dang docs are saving ever more lives. A major UMass Harvard study published in a peer-reviewed journal, if we had 1970s technology, that number would be 4 times what it is. If it weren't for body armor cuts the number of dead cops in half, yes? So double the number of cops murdered, and that number would have died without body armor. Multiply that number by 4, and that's probably how many would have died with 1970s medical technology. So the number of dead cops has been coming down for decades because of body armor, tactics, training, technology. But folks, in the last 10 years, it's gone back up again. In spite of everything we do, the number of cops murdered in the line of duty is going up and up and up. But here's the question. How many cops murder themselves? Law enforcement suicide. Folks, listen to me. Nobody has good suicide data except the military. Nobody investigates every single death and calls it what it is except the military. Folks, we don't have good suicide data. It's just guesstimates. Anybody who tells you they know is lying. But suicides are up. Suicides are way up across our entire society. The media doesn't like to talk about suicide. They got their fingers burned a while back. They found out if they report suicides, you get more suicides. Cluster suicides. People read about suicide in the paper, and they say, oh, that's not a good idea, and they do it. And the media doesn't like to talk about it, but suicide is way up across our whole society. I'll tell you later on why that is. I was in Canada Recently, I do a lot of work in Canada, and they believe that suicide is the #1 killer of their teens. And I think if we had the data, we'd say the same thing here in America. We'll talk more about that shortly. But somewhere between 200 and 450 cops take their own lives every year. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. How many leave the profession of death spiral and then take their lives? How many do we lose from depression and PTSD and other dynamics? So here's the point. Whether you're a soldier in combat or a cop on the beat, the weak link is the mind, yes? In all these cases, their bodies were still healthy. Their mind was the weak link. You with me so far? All right, let's go back to Normandy Beach. 98% of those who were left after 60 days had become psychiatric casualties. They were literally driven crazy by combat. What about the other 2%? What do you think? They were crazy when they got there. The World War II researchers lumped them together as aggressive sociopaths or psychopaths. But wait, it's far more complex. All these numbers can vary greatly. Hear me, these numbers can vary greatly. World War II was a drafted cross-section of society. Among a group of volunteers, the numbers could change greatly, yes? But let us call it 1% and 1%. An old Vietnam vet, an old retired colonel told me one time, just one sentence, and we've run with it ever since. He said, most people in our society are sheep. They're just decent, gentle creatures who can only hurt you by accident or extreme provocation. And then there's a wolf. And the wolf will feed on the sheep without mercy. Are there wolves in the land? Are there people who will harm your children and take pleasure from doing it? Yes? Tell it to Bestland, yes? There are wolves in the land. The moment we try to pretend, no, there's no bad men out here, you, my friend, are in denial. And denial is the enemy. Denial turns us into sheep. So the guy said, there are wolves, there are sheep, and then he said, there are sheepdogs. He said, I am a predator too. I am a meat eater too. But I live to protect the flock and confront the wolf. Critical concept here, folks, critical concept. Only a predator can hunt a predator. You know what the wolf calls it when a sheep tries to stand up to him? Yeah? Lunch. What's the wolf call it when a whole bunch of sheep try to stand up to him? Yeah? A buffet. Only a predator can hunt a predator. The predator under authority. The predator dedicated to protecting the flock. The sheepdog. And folks, what's the predator do? They kill. Only a killer can hunt a killer. And you got to ask yourself right now, no matter what your task is, what your job is, if you're wearing the uniform of our nation, you got to ask yourself, are you spiritually, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, physically prepared to snuff out a human life under the rules of engagement in the defense of our nation? If you can't answer that question, and I'll tell you the deep dark secret of the field of psychology. Every human being is insecure. The ones who could admit they're insecure are a little more secure than the others, huh? Within the normal bounds of human uncertainty. Have you resolved in your heart that you're fully prepared to snuff out a human life? If you can't make that decision, you're in the wrong job. And folks, once you've made that decision, you're a predator. Under normal circumstances, the sheep don't like having predators around. The sheep are wary of the sheepdog until when? When do they suddenly change their mind? When the wolf shows up. The whole flock tries to hide behind one lonely sheepdog, yes? So folks, the uber sheep out there are saying, the bad man's gone, leave us alone, go away. They're wrong. Bad news, the wolf is at the door. Very, very bad times are coming. Good news, the worse it gets, the more they appreciate their sheepdogs. And so folks, here's why this model is important. If you have no propensity for violence, then you're a nonviolent citizen. And when the wolf shows up, you're going to die if there's a sheepdog there to protect you. If you have a propensity for violence and an absence of empathy, violence without empathy is a pretty good thumbnail definition of what? A psychopath, a sociopath, a wolf. But what if you had a propensity for violence and a love for the lambs? What if you spent a lifetime nurturing the capacity for violence, the desire to use it in a righteous battle? Now what do you have? A sheepdog, an airman, a warrior. You know, there's been silly people that don't like the use of that word warrior with law enforcement. So look up the definition of the word warrior. One who prepares for or participates in what? War. Is our nation at war? Is our cops or frontline troops in this war? Yeah. And they don't want to use the word warrior? They're in denial. They're just in stinking denial. There's people that are troubled by using the word warrior for our cops. I'm troubled that they're trying to pretend we're not at war. They're trying to pretend that we don't need our warriors. Now, here's ultimately why it's important. Here's the heart of the matter. Ultimately, these people are shattered by combat. These people are crazy when they got there. But these people are able to survive and thrive in the heart of darkness. They're not psychopaths. They're not sociopaths. And they're not destroyed by combat. These people are bulletproof. I call it the bulletproof mind. They're bulletproof. Whatever they got, we want it. Can we agree on that? If we're going to survive in that toxic realm called combat and not bring home the gift that keeps on giving. You see, I call PTSD the gift that keeps on giving, kind of like herpes. Look, if you die, that's not contagious. If you lose a limb, your kids can't catch that. You come home with a load of emotional baggage. Who is to live with it? Your loved ones. It can echo down across the generations. And if we're going to survive in that toxic realm called combat and not bring home the gift that keeps on giving, then dang it, what have they got? We want it, yes? I call it the bulletproof mind. The military calls it resiliency. I was a keynote speaker at the first Department of Defense-wide Resiliency Conference, as the opening speaker at the second DoD-wide Resiliency Conference. Resiliency is a buzzword for people who do not get PTSD. Now stop there for a minute. How many else saw the movie American Sniper? Haven't seen it, it's your homework assignment. One of the most important movies of our time. But in the movie, early on, at the dinner table, Dad talks to the kids about the sheep, the wolf, the sheepdog. Remember that? That wasn't in Chris Kyle's book. They took that straight from my stuff. With my permission, they lifted whole sentences out of my work and loaded it in there. And one of the left-wing blogs is kind of offended by that movie. He said, yeah, all this sheepdog stuff comes from this guy Grossman. And of course, there's no scientific foundation for it. Oh, stop there. One of the most studied topics on the planet. People who do not get PTSD. Holocaust survivors and POWs who walk out of death camps, unspeakable horror, and upstairs they're just fine. Do you believe there's people who walked out of that Nazi death camp? Do you believe there's people who walked out of that POW camp and upstairs they're just fine? You got to believe it, folks. A simple scientific historical fact. We study those people. When you get back from the first break, I'll show you what they all have in common. Every evil act the enemy inflicted upon us renewed our faith. We're on the right side in this war. Think about that. Every bad thing that happens in this world should renew your faith that the world needs what you have to give, yes? The sheep are always trying to cut you down. Why are you doing this? You go, the bad man's gone, leave us alone, But you got to believe in who you are. And what greater motivation can there be than our children, yes? So step one of resilience is this motivation. But step two is motivation turned into action. See, there are no ultimate sheepdogs. There's people up and down the scale. Hey, Captain, where did that sheet go? I just had a young captain here that took my sheet up there. I thought it was done, but I'm wrong. I need to put it back up for just a minute. Can I get it back from you? Where you at, bro? There he is, back in the back there. It's all right. Sorry about that. Oh, we're not quite done, but we'll get back to you. You edit this out of the camera here, buddy. Step two in resiliency is motivation turned into action. Now, There are no ultimate sheepdogs. There are no ultimate warriors. They're just people up and down the scale. On one end of the scale is denial. What is the opposite of denial? Acceptance. And if you truly accept, you'll prepare. The opposite of denial is preparation, yes? The more we dedicate ourselves to our profession, the more we prepare ourselves physically and psychologically, the better able we are to live with whatever happens. Now, I'll give you kind of a law enforcement side of the world that makes it come alive. I'm a reserve cop. I'm on the road continuously, but I've been on the road for 18 years since I retired, almost 300 days a year, and had one sick day in 300 years, in 18 days. 18 years. I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but I miss being outside. After a lifetime as a paratrooper, as a ranger, I just miss weeks in the jungle, the desert, forest. You give me a break, I want to get outside. I'm only home 1 or 2 nights a week, but there's a 2-mile gravel track around a lake outside of town. My little grandson my oldest boy is 13 now, my oldest grandson. Ever since that little guy was 3, he and I go walking out there once or twice a month. Smell the pines, smell the water, recharge your batteries. It's Arkansas, it's hot. Very often we're out there late on a Saturday night when it finally cools off. Pitch black, no street lights here. Never been a violent crime, wouldn't take a little one in harm's way. But quite a while back, the little guy and I are walking around this park, singing and talking, pitch black. He says, "Grandpa, it's dark," like he just now discovered. I told the dark can be a friend and teach me comfort the dark. Now, of course, I've got a gun. When I'm out here on the road, I can't always carry. I'm at a military base one day, I present in a casino and a conference another day. I'll be in Canada the next day. My bag's at diverted doing wear the next day. When I'm at home with my loved ones, beat me, whip me, strip me, kick me out the door naked, or I'll be with my grandbaby without tools protecting. Of course I got a gun. I got a blade. I got a big old German Shepherd. My grandson says, "Grandpa, there's scary things in the night." I said, "Yeah, it's us." He asked my grandson, "There's scary things in the night." He says, "Yeah, it's us." He's convinced his grandpa, his dog, and he are the scariest thing to walk the night. You know what? He's right. I call this the angel of the night. We took the whole sheepdog thing and turned it into a children's book. I don't have any copies available today, and I regret that greatly. It's one of the most important things I've ever done. And it begins with a poem about the angel of the night. It says, "Fear not the night. Fear that which walks the night, and I am that which walks the night. But only evil need fear me, and gentle souls sleep safe in their beds, because I walk the night." You got the finest hardware, you got the finest software. You're confident in your skills. Now, you know what? The sheep say, we'll come up behind you and shoot you, goody good. The sheep come up with weird, convoluted scenarios to prove that nothing you can do, and they're right. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They believe there's nothing they can do, and so they do nothing. And that makes them dead people waiting for somebody to come fulfill their prophecy. I see dead people all around me. The sheepdog just the opposite. I know a cop in Orlando, Florida, Jennifer Fulford, shot 10 times. Killed the 2 bastards, shot her, it's only fair. Back on the job a year later. Shot 10 times, killed the bastards, and she's back on the job a year later. Somebody come up to me and shoots me. They got a surprise coming. The sheep invent weird, convoluted scenarios to prove there's nothing they can do, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The sheepdog does just the opposite. But here's the crazy part. Even if that worst-case scenario happens, even if the survival tools fail, you're less likely to bring home the gift that keeps on giving, because you did everything you could legally, morally do, yeah? Your conscience is clear. Never be caught without a blade. When it's legal and lawful, carry whatever tools are lawful for us to protect our loved ones. Whatever happens, your conscience is clear. Denial kills us twice. Denial kills us once physically. You don't have the tools, you don't have the skills, and you die. Denial kills us a second time psychologically, because you live the rest of your life in hell when there's simple things you could and should have done. Preparation saves us twice. It saves us once physically because you're triumphant, you had the skills, you had the tools, but even if you fail, you can live with yourself because you did everything you can do. So folks, wherever we are on that scale, try to come further up that scale. Let me show you how people up down the scale think. When the sheep heard about the 9/11 hijackings, they said, thank God I wasn't on that plane. When the sheepdog heard about the 9/11 hijackings, they said, I wish I was on that plane. Maybe I could have made a difference. Yeah? Most of you say, yeah, you got my number. I wish I was on that plane. Good. Shame on us they catch us twice with the same trick. I'm on that plane almost 300 nights a year. We'll get up and kick his tail like those guys in that train in France, yeah? They won't know what hit them, yeah? But odds are pretty good they ain't going to try the same trick. Be ready in the mall, be ready in the theater, be ready in our schools and our daycare centers. And most of all, be ready to hunt down the bastards across the planet and kill them before they do. That's what it's about. So folks, we don't know what he's going to do next time, but we know we will do our utmost to hunt him down and kill him before he does. And the more you come up that scale and prepare yourself, the less likely you are to bring home the gift that keeps on giving. Now there's a third group out there. Wait a minute, Dave. Well, how can there be two groups? I mean, the people who wish they were on that plane and the people that don't. People who are too young. We have 18-year-old airmen coming in who were 4 when 9/11 happened. They don't remember 9/11 like most of us do. And it's our job to make sure they remember. All of you in a leadership position, I place upon you a responsibility. Every year when 9/11 comes by, I don't care if it's Sunday morning, Saturday morning, every year when 9/11 comes by, you gather every warrior under your authority. You set them down in a theater with a big screen TV. Go to YouTube. Pull down one of those good 20-minute compilations of video of 9/11 with the music. And you set every warrior down and you watch. You watch the first plane plow into the first tower. As 400 Americans died before your eyes in a ball of flame, women and children slaughtered. Watch the second plane plow into the second tower. Another 200, 300, 400 Americans died before your eyes. Watch the plane plow into the Pentagon, and hundreds of our fellow warriors are killed in a plane load of innocent citizens, women, children, families are murdered before our eyes. Watch the bodies rain down for the World Trade Center in horror. Watch the first tower fall, and 1,000 Americans die before your eyes in a cloud of ash and a puff of despair. Watch the second cloud, the second tower collapse. Watch the survivors stagger out of that cloud, coated with dust and shock and horror. And then you turn to every warrior under your authority, and you tell them, never again, never again. Not on my watch, not on my beat, never again. And burn it into the soul of a new generation. We may not forget. We must not forget. And so, come further up that path. You know, this is sometimes called an internal locus of control. An internal locus of control. What's that mean? Best I put it is this. An internal locus of control. A cop told me one time, he said, I don't get PTSD, I give it. I'm a carrier. Now, as long as we understand that we're all human, as long as we understand that make up a time we all might need a hand, that's not a bad attitude to have, yeah? I control my destiny, I control my fate, I refuse to be a victim. Identify all the things in this world you can't control and let go of them. Quit pissing and moaning about things you can't control. It'll drive you mad. Identify the one thing in the universe you can control and do it. And in the end, who's the one person on this planet we can control? It's ourselves. Can we all agree on that? There's only one thing in the universe you can control. It's yourself. And if we give way to bitterness, if we give way to cynicism, or complacency, or denial, that's the one thing we can control. And you've given the world a victory over hand, and we will not give them that victory. So try to come further up that path every day of your life. And I got a pop quiz to make this come alive for you. Oh no, nobody said there'd be a test. identify for me the sheepdog in this photograph. A bomb has gone off left to screen. The flock is beginning to stampede. Now look at my little boy. Somebody's beginning to fire into the crowd. Look at my little boy, terror in his face. Look at my sheepdog, head erect, striding toward the sound of the guns. Now here's the exact same scene a split second later. Fast as the camera clicks the shutter, here they are. The flock is in full stampede. The sheepdog is striding toward the sound of the guns. And that little boy, he ain't no fool. He knows cover when he sees it. You know what's better than a ceramic plate between you and the bad guy? 2 ceramic plates, camelback human body between you and the bad guy, yeah? There's sad little people out there say, oh, one man's terrorist, another man's freedom fighter. They're no different than that, they're just on the other side. Bull! That little boy can tell the difference. Folks, we say in our Sheepdog Kids book, we say the wolf lives to destroy. The sheepdog lives to protect. The wolf says might makes right. The sheepdog says might alone is not strength, and compassion is not weakness. Might alone is not strength, and compassion is not weakness. The wolf, the coward, will use the lambs as human shields. The American warrior is a human shield for the lambs. There's all the difference in the world. And so you believe in who you are and you come further up that scale. Now let me tell you what y'all here today. Ain't nobody ever joined the armed forces just for the money. If your goal in life was to make one hell of a lot of money, a lot of people in this room know to make more money than make right now. Some of it might be legal. Yeah? If you ain't here just for the money, why are you here? Because you're sheepdogs, warriors. Because you've heard the summons of the trumpet. You know there's evil in the land. And you want to use your life to make the world a little bit better place. See, the sheep are wary of the sheepdog. But we like our sheep. We like our sheep, yeah? And we would have trouble living with ourselves. If somebody came to kill our lambs, we hadn't done everything we can do, yes? We would have trouble living with ourselves. If somebody came to kill our lambs, we hadn't done everything we can do, yeah? The next step in resiliency is a positive self-fulfilling prophecy. All right, bro, now you can put dibs on it. It's yours. Appreciate you wanting to do that. So the crazy thing about combat is people respond the way they think they're supposed to respond. And that can mess you up. Hollywood is giving us 2 goofy myths. The first goofy Hollywood myth is what I call the pity party. Hollywood loves the pity party. The tormented, haunted veteran comes home from the war scarred for life. There are people like that, but they're rare. You must believe the vast majority of people are made stronger by combat, yes? Folks, you remember Saving Private Ryan? How many of y'all saw Saving Private Ryan? Saw the World War II vets live with? Not for a 6-month rotation, not for a 1-year rotation. Year after year, without end in sight, the World War II vets faced things we can't imagine. And they came home and they were the greatest generation, yes? That World War II generation was truly empowered, ennobled, enriched by their experience. And a new greatest generation coming home if we don't mess them up. Nietzsche said, what doesn't kill us only makes us what? Stronger. By the way, that's the name of a book I commend to your attention. What Doesn't Kill Us, the new science of post-traumatic growth. Everybody's heard about post-traumatic stress. Far more important, far more powerful is post-traumatic growth. The Bible talks about it over and over again. Nietzsche flat stole that from the Bible. 2,000 years before Nietzsche, the Bible says the same thing. Romans chapter 5. We glory in tribulation. For tribulation worketh patience, patience experience, experience hope, and hope maketh not ashamed. The idea, Romans chapter 5, the idea of being stronger for the bad thing in life is not a new idea. We call it School of Hard Knocks. The pity party, waving the victim card, that's a new idea. You don't want nothing to do with it. And there is so much garbage in the media about our troops. Like the suicide thing. You ever on that planet that didn't know military suicides are up? But they're up across our whole society. They're way up. And our military suicides have nothing to do with combat. A non-combat vet is as likely to take their life as a combat vet. Well, I'll tell you what the new variable is in the suicide dynamics causing an explosion in suicide worldwide. The single greatest predictor, I believe, is sleep deprivation. And across our entire culture, sleep deprivation is killing us. More about that later. Well, how about this one, folks? An NPR piece based on a New York Times piece. Over 100 veterans of this war have come home and committed murder. It's true. Over 100 veterans have come home, driven mad by war and committed murder. Stop. We've been at war for 14 years with 3 million Americans in the war zone. The murder rate for citizens 18 to 25 is 25 per 100,000 per year. Out of any million Americans in that age group, there should be 250 murders a year. 3 million veterans in that general age group should have given us 750 murders last year alone. Extrapolate that data back over 14 years of war, and statistically speaking, our veterans should have given us several thousand murders. All they proved was the murder rate for a returning veteran is less than a tenth what it is for the general population. Are you with me on this? This is a vile and despicable smear of our veterans. This is an obscene misrepresentation of the data. Why would they do this? They don't dang well what they're doing. It's all politics. They're victims of an evil war. War drives men mad. We must never go to war again. Well, it's okay. You're allowed your opinion. But do not malign and smear our veterans to score political points. And folks, the returning veteran is in almost every way a superior member of society. It definitely, a tenth as likely to commit a homicide as a non-veteran of the same age. But how about this one? What percentage of our troops have PTSD? Half? A third? A quarter? Lie. The Veterans Administration, the VA, is very aggressive in identifying PTSD, and they tell us 8% of the veterans have PTSD. So where'd the crazy numbers come from? Well, I want you to Google all this and track on it. There was a good study of the first batch of troops coming back from Iraq, and it said 30 to 40% had some symptoms of PTSD. Having some of the symptoms is not PTSD, it's normal. A loud noise goes off, boom, you hit the dirt. That's one of the symptoms of PTSD. It's also a survival mechanism that'll take a while to go away, yes? So this was a good report, and then they took one word out. I swear the media just took one word out, not a week later. That's not a lie, is it? Take one word out. 30 to 40% had symptoms of PTSD. Then I swear it wasn't a week later they took one more word out. That's not a lie, is it? Take one word out. 30 to 40% have PTSD, and somewhere along they lost the 30. Folks, Google 40% PTSD and see how many times it comes up. And every single time is a lie. A flat out, pissant lie. Folks, why are they doing this? It's all politics. Hundreds of thousands of shattered human beings destroyed by war. The price of war is too high. We'll never go to war again. Well, you're allowed your own opinion. You're not allowed your own facts. And it's a flat-out lie. And they've repeated it for over a decade. Systematic smear of our veterans. I'll give you one more piece of data. A lot of studies tell us our returning veteran has a higher unemployment rate than a non-vet of the same age. And a lot of that's because people believe this garbage. There's whole chunks of our society who believe our veterans are suicidal, homicidal, PTSD-riddled nutcases when the truth is just the opposite. A small percentage of our veterans need our help and we'll be there for them. The vast majority of veterans need one thing. They need jobs. Tell the world, hire a vet. Hire a vet. They have maturity, they have experience, they have discipline, and special bonus order now. But less than a tenth is likely to kill you as a non-vet. What a deal. But you come home with some baggage. Everybody comes home with a little baggage got to process. You can't get a job. Everybody expects you to be a wacko. It becomes very easy to fall into this role. People respond the way they think they're supposed to respond. They're destroying lives with this garbage, and they don't care. Folks, the Vietnam veteran was spit on and attacked and condemned. Baby killers. It really did happen. Now, instead of villains, they're victims. Our returning veterans are not villains and they're not victims. The media smeared the Vietnam vet, and they're trying to smear the vets of this war, and we won't let them do it. We've got to understand the truth. No pity party. Go into combat believing it'll make you stronger. What's it going to be like after your first gunfight, your firefight? What's it going to be like? You're going to be the veteran. Other people look up to you in the future, and they'll be better prepared for future things because you've been there once before, yes? But no macho man. The other goofy Hollywood myth is the macho man or the macho gal. Plenty of them out there. One old Miami detective told me one time, he said, Colonel, you tell these guys, don't be the macho man. He said, I got my shooting, it's eating me alive. Now, most cops get in a shooting, and it's no big deal. But for some it is, and that's okay. We're there for them. He said, it was 2 years of hell after my police shooting. I was losing my wife, I was losing my kids, I was losing my job, and I tried to macho it out. He said, finally, just before the divorce, my wife convinced me to get help. 2 months later, it was over. 2 years of hell for me and everybody I love. I could have ended it any time. You tell these guys, don't be the macho man. The docs are good, they get better every day. And we have got to create an environment which is okay to get help. Put a boot on your buddy's tail. Hey, you bonehead, your world's coming unglued. Get help. And here's the heart of the matter. Listen, listen, listen. You must believe the help can help. We're darn good at treating PTSD, and we get better every day, yes? Medical science moves on. The single greatest lie out there, and how they get away with it? Post-traumatic stress disorder is one mental disorder that cannot be treated. If a mental health professional tells you PTSD is for life, and you believe them, they have damned you to a lifetime of mental illness. Why? Folks, I train international and national and regional psych conferences. I presented at a California State Conference, a big auditorium. Every flavor of shrink was there. I had how many people in this room personally know of cases where PTSD was treated and recovered fully? Half the hands were up. Everybody with their hand up is poking a finger in the eye of the lion dog that says PTSD is for life. Why, in the face of ever-advancing medical science? Why, in the face of hundreds of thousands of cases that treated and recovered fully? Why, in the face of the indomitable human spirit? Why would anybody say PTSD is for life? 2 reasons. Number one, politics, right? Hundreds of thousands of shattered human beings will never recover. All right, we get it. Number two, job security. If I cure you in 2 months, I'm out of a job. If I hook you to a lifetime of therapy, and maybe with a lifetime of therapy we can adapt. No. We're increasingly convinced if you want to get better, we get the proper treatment, almost going to be recovered fully. So folks, no pity party, no macho man. Go into that life and death event believing it'll make you stronger. But don't hesitate to get help if you need it. And believe the help can help. Weave a path, a warrior path, between these two obstacles. Now listen, this is terribly important. I am not saying this is easy. We're not diminishing the difficulty of anybody's warrior path. You didn't choose easy path when you chose to join the armed forces in time of war. But it's a whole lot easier if you know the danger to the left or the right. Beware that pity party. Go into that life and death event believing it's going to make you stronger. Beware the macho man. If there is a problem, deal with it, and have faith to help can help. Now, the next step in resiliency is to make sure your body is prepared to deal with the stress. If you're severely malnourished and somebody attacks you, obviously the malnutrition is putting enormous stress on your body. When somebody attacks you, those stressors can amplify each other. That's why the POWs and the Holocaust survivors probably have such a hard time of it. The malnutrition combined with what their captors did to them, those stressors can amplify each other, yes? If you're injured or ill, obviously the injury, the illness is putting stress on your body. If somebody attacks you while you're injured or ill, those stressors can amplify each other. That's why probably the elderly are more vulnerable to violent crime. The physical infirmity, the elderly body combined with the trauma makes it harder for them to shake it off. But I'm willing to bet nobody here is severely malnourished. There's probably nobody here severely ill or injured. Entirely too many of us are sleep deprived. If you're sleep deprived and a bad juju comes down, those stressors can amplify each other, and you're far more likely to bring home the gift that keeps on giving. Now, folks, I believe the single greatest area where we can make progress in resiliency is sleep. Sleep is the weak link in our chain. Now, here's the first base fundamental concept. Sleep is a biological blind spot. Our bodies know how to make us get enough food. Go without food for 24 hours, and your body will be telling you. Body knows how to make us get fluids. We've got to watch that. Body knows how to make us get enough air. But the body doesn't know how to make us get sleep because it always happened naturally. Can we all agree on one thing? Throughout history, every night, without fail, it got dark, right? And firewood and candles and lanterns were rare and precious commodities. And it got dark every night. You only had so much talking, so much sex, you rolled over and you went to sleep. Then Tommy Essett invented the light bulb. And suddenly we're able to go 24/7, and our bodies don't know how to make us get enough sleep. My favorite website is ScienceDaily.com. I check it every day. I go to the individual categories and check them all the way down. There's things on there that I'll be in the front page every day. I love it. And there's a great study just recently of 2 villages in the Amazon jungle. One of them gets electricity, the other one doesn't. Of course, with electricity comes electric lights, first thing. The village with electricity immediately becomes sleep deprived. The other village is not. Folks, we are a horrendously sleep deprived culture, and it's getting a lot worse. Now, in the Air Force, for example, is one of the first people to report on this, and we've had research that backs it up since then. But our first good study of our suicides, in the Air Force, for example, the only ones in combat most of the time, every day, are pilots. But the pilots have a great culture of sleep management. So in the first good block of data we had on our suicides, the intel guy back at the base is 5 times more likely to commit suicide than the pilot is. But the pilot's got a great culture of sleep management. Going to be flying a $1/10 billion aircraft tomorrow. Get some sleep, roger out. The intel guy is working long, grueling hours, and he's exactly the kind of geek, go to his room and play video games all night. We'll talk more about that, folks. And the intel guy is 5 times more likely to commit suicide than the pilot is. Folks, in our law enforcement community, we know, you see a video of a cop doing something stupid. You said, that's just stupid. Why is he doing that? Because he's sleep deprived. Every time when we get the data, he's sleep deprived, and sleep deprived people do stupid stuff. I was a West Point psych professor. We're at West Point Engineering School. And we're the psych guys. We're the touchy-feely guys. We try to help out. And the plebes, the freshmen, stagger straight into hell, and we try to help out. One of the first things we do is to teach sleep management. And we teach them the dumbest thing you can do is do an all-nighter the night before the test. To stay up all night long the night before the test is to take what we call the stupid pill. Your IQ goes down, your memory retention, your executive judgment skills go down. You're the equivalent, after 24 hours without sleep, you're the equivalent of 0.10 drunk. Now, folks, if somebody staggered into morning formation drunk, you would kick his ass. If somebody staggers into formation sleep deprived because he played video games all night, he needs his ass kicked. You understand? This business of sleep deprivation is eating us alive. Again, New England Journal of Medicine study for law enforcement. The greatest predictor of ethical problems in law enforcement was sleep. The greatest predictor of use of force problems was sleep. The greatest predictor of suicide, I believe, is sleep. And I believe it's a critical factor in PTSD, sleep. You want to reduce ethical problems? Sleep. You want to have judgment skills? Sleep. You want to reduce suicide and PTSD? Sleep. Sleep is a weak link in our chain, and there is nothing macho about going without sleep. Any 10-year-old girl in a slumber party can do it. The macho thing is to manage your sleep and pace yourself for the long game. Now, folks, like I said, the wild card in this equation is the video games. I lost a little brother to suicide. I lost a nephew to suicide. Suicides are exploding across our entire society. And here's parenting 101 for the 21st century. When you send your kid to bed at night, take their cell phone away from them. Folks, no laptop in the room, no cell phone in the room. They go to their bed and they sleep. And if you're a parent, now I'm a grandparent of teenagers, you should be scared sick of suicide. Some of the data tells us it is the thing most likely to kill our kids. And you take their cell phone away, you send them to bed. You give me two things, drama. What kid doesn't have drama in their life, yes? You give me two things, drama, inescapable stress, come off that cell phone all night long, and sleep deprivation. And I will give you a powerful cocktail for depression and suicide. They have got to go to bed and get a good night's sleep. That blue light frequency coming off the cell phone and the laptop is completely the opposite of what you need when you're ready to go to sleep. But who's going to be your mommy? Who's going to make you get that sleep, folks? We got to pace ourselves for the long game. Recent research shows us that video games are responsible for 15% of all divorces in America. Google video games and divorce, it'll come right up, 15%. And folks, I want you to realize when we play video games, we go to an alpha state. We become incapable of keeping track of time. Suddenly, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you got no idea where the last 6 hours went, and your spouse is sincerely pissed off. Yeah? So folks, there's nothing wrong with adults playing video games, unless it gets in the way of your sleep, or your family, or your job. If you come to work sleep deprived because of video games, you got a problem. If you staggered into the house dead drunk 3 o'clock every night, you know you got a problem. If you wipe out the credit cards and wipe out the paycheck gambling every payday, you know you got a problem. But you're up till 3 o'clock night after night playing video games and you think you don't have a problem. You do have a problem. And you got to pace yourself for the long game. So folks, ask yourself now, is that video game more important than your family? Is it more important than your job? Is it more important than your health? So it's good to have something to escape to at night. Set the timer for an hour. Play for an hour. Ding, the timer goes off. Use your Steely Warrior discipline. Save the game, get on with life. Oh, yeah, but you don't understand. I play a major metamorphic online game. You can't do nothing in an hour a night. All right, it's okay. Decide now what's important. Is that video game important? Then move into your parents' basement, draw unemployment, and play video games. Millions of people are doing that. You want to have a job? You want to have health? You want to have family? You got to control it, and you got to pace yourself for the long game, sleep. So folks, it's one thing to talk about getting sleep. Another thing to give you solid nuggets of information that you can use. So Sleep 101 begins with Nap 101. Naps are a friend. Naps are good. But shoot for 30 minutes or more. Some of the research is 20 minutes. I think it keeps coming out at 30 is a good line to seek for. Now, a 10-minute nap is kind of funny. You're driving down the road, your head is bobbing, take those little micro naps. Ever been there? Those little micro naps? Huh? Pull over. Put your head down for 10 minutes. The alarm goes off. It's kind of a startle response. And you can push the envelope another 10 minutes. You're bobbing again. As far as sleep deprivation goes, that 10-minute nap was a total waste of your life. Put your head down for 30 minutes. You wake up bleary and groggy and you don't want to get up. You know why? Because you're asleep. It takes 30 minutes for a solid, sound, deep cycle day, and I want to get back up again and sleep. Anything's better than nothing, but in general, anything less than 30 minutes is a waste of our life. You just threw that time away. So the snooze alarm is not our friend. The snooze alarm is always set for about 10 minutes. Why? Because 10-minute snooze is kind of a startle response. Get a 10-minute snooze, another 10-minute snooze, another 10-minute snooze. You know what you just did? You just threw 30 minutes of your life away. You and anybody in the room with you. Those 3 snoozes of no value as far as sleep goes and no value as far as your life goes. You threw 30 minutes of the day away to trick your body and go to that sleep. I will teach you a trick that'll put 30 minutes of quality sleep back in every day. That adds up to 3.5 hours sleep back in every week. That adds up to 2 pure, beautiful nights sleep back in every month. That adds up to 24 nights sleep back in every year. Very simple. Set the alarm a half hour later and get the hell out of bed. Show some discipline, dang it. If it's that stinking hard to get out of bed, what's your body trying to tell you? Your body's screaming at you, need more sleep. And what do? You play pissant games with your own body. You trick yourself into going without sleep. Who pays the price? You do, your comrades, your family, when you bring home the gift that keeps on giving, yes? So here's the trick. Set the alarm where you got to get out of bed to turn it off. That's all you got to do. Put the alarm where you got to get out of bed to turn it off. That's all we need. And mentally swear to yourself, I will get to bed earlier tonight. Promise your body. All right, I'll get to bed earlier tonight. Just get me through today. Yeah? All right, the snooze alarm is not our friend. The dark is our friend. We are designed to sleep in the dark. Folks, you may not get 1 more minute of sleep. You can get quality sleep if you do it in the dark. Now, ScienceDaily.com, recent study. You're in a dark room, the bathroom light is on and the door is shut. The light coming under the bathroom door is enough light to stop you from producing the melatonin your body needs. Isn't that amazing? You need a truly dark room. Now, you all saw Black Hawk Down, right? The helicopter unit of Black Hawk Down is Task Force 160, Special Ops Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers. I've had the honor to train them on 4 occasions since 9/11. Navy SEALs went to get bin Laden, but Army helicopters took them there. Yeah? And the Night Stalkers are fanatical about night operations. And they're not day stalkers. They're absolutely fanatical. And they teach their pilots to create a truly dark room. They put aluminum foil over the windows to create a truly dark room. They don't do that, just keep the brainwaves out. But they're fanatical about it. And folks, that nap in the recliner was a waste of time, unless it's in the dark. There's another trick out there, and it's a tremendously important trick. The old sleep mask, huh? We've been issuing these around to everybody. I got 2 of these. I got one in my pocket when I travel, one hanging off the bedpost at home. It's not just for kinky marital applications. I get home at old dark 30 on the average Friday night, Saturday night. Next week I'll be in 6 cities, 6 days, 6 cities, stagger to bed Saturday night, curl up and go to sleep. A couple hours later, it's daylight. Now, we got good curtains, but you know it's daytime outside, and that's way too much light. If you know it's daytime, that's way too much light. I roll out of bed, take a leak, put my sleep mask on, and get another 2, 4, 6 hours of beautiful sleep. ScienceDaily.com, recent study. Extra sleep on the weekend will recharge your batteries to hit the week refreshed. The major thing you should be doing with the weekend is to recharge the batteries and catch up on sleep. And so the dark is our friend. Again, you may not get 1 more minute of sleep, but it's got to be in the dark. You kick back in the recliner and sleep for an hour, you threw that hour away, unless you put that sleep mask on and create that dark room. Nicotine is not our friend. There's always somebody on the perimeter who says, man, if I could have a dip, I could have a smoke, I could stay awake. Wrong. The research is clear. Nicotine has 0 value in helping you stay alert, with one exception. I was training all the Texas Rangers. Folks, I've trained them all. And nobody's ever impressed me like the Texas Rangers. They're for real. One old Ranger comes up to me, hog leg on his hip, mustache, A dozen gunfights, one of the most deadly men you ever meet, Chuck Norris. Yeah? He said, Colonel, you're wrong. Nicotine can keep you awake. I said, sir, who might argue if it works for you? He said, now listen. You got to chew your tobacco. Something in your mouth, I can see that. He said, listen to me. You chew tobacco, you spit it in your hand, and you rub it in your eye. He was dead serious. 2 World War II vets had told me the same thing. I've interviewed countless, thousands across the years of interactive feedback loop with veterans. And 2 World War II vets told me the same thing. One was with the 101st Airborne Division at the Battle of the Bulge in Bastogne. Remember Band of Brothers? Remember the 101st in the Battle of the Bulge in Bastogne? He said we were surrounded, and the Germans were attacking and attacking with fresh troops. We were exhausted. You sleep, you die. You sleep, your buddy dies. So the trick was you take a little flake of cigarette tobacco and drop it under the eyelid of your non-firing eye. And it would ache, and it would burn, and that would keep you awake. Only way nicotine do any good if you inject it in your eye. Yeah? Caffeine. Caffeine, our friend, not our friend. What do you think? Oh, caffeine is our friend. Caffeine is one of the most effective drugs we've ever found to temporarily limit your vulnerability with minimal side effects if you're not abusing the drug on a daily basis. Need a quadruple shot latte to get you going in the morning? A 64-ounce big gulp Mountain Dew to carry you through the morning? Another quadruple shot latte at lunch? And a 6-pack of Rock Bowl Star Monster energy drink after lunch? You're abusing the drug. You ever heard of build up a tolerance of drug? Ever heard of habituation of drug? You ever seen a little crackhead? Little crackhead whose main line in the drug just to stay normal. They hit the point where they're putting vast amounts of drug in their body just to stay normal. That's where people are, a lot of people with caffeine. So here's the trick, folks. Go cold turkey for 1 day. Cut off all caffeine for 1 day. If you get any withdrawal symptoms, you know dang well that's what happened. Those are withdrawal symptoms. Headaches, shakes, digestive problems, irritability. You get any withdrawal symptoms, that's living proof you're abusing the drug. And taper off. Oh, I can't do that. I just can't detox. I admit it, I'm addicted and I can't detox, it's too hard. Well, what if you were injured in some traffic accident? What if you were shot up in combat and you're struggling for your life in the hospital? At the same time, your body's going through caffeine withdrawal. You stack the deck against yourself. You set yourself up with a double whammy. Now is the time to get your caffeine under control. Now, folks, the research is clear. Coffee is good for us. Coffee is just about one of the best things we can put in our bodies. Go to ScienceData.com, do a quick search for coffee. It's all good. Coffee appears to protect us from several different kinds, and tea's right behind it for good. Protects us from several different kinds of cancer, heart disease, stroke. The few times that coffee appears to be a little negative is because it's getting in the way of our sleep. We'll talk about that. But folks, the research keeps telling us 3 or 4 normal-sized cups of coffee a day is good for us. Get a cup of coffee or 2 at lunch, a cup of coffee or 2 in the morning. And folks, get your caffeine from coffee or tea. There is nothing good for you in that soda. There is nothing good for you in that energy drink. The research is clear. This energy drink, it will give you 1 hour boost. The energy drink gives you a 1 hour boost. Look at the research. I mean, you get a little bit of kick for an hour, and then you crash. It don't matter how many more you take, don't matter how many more you pump in your system. After the first one, in an hour boost, boom, you're done. You're toast. You're over. And it don't do no good to keep pounding those things down. Save those for real emergencies when you got to boost it up for an hour, knowing that after that hour, you're toast. And get your caffeine from coffee. Take a normal cup of coffee in the morning. Another cup of coffee, 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day appears to be really good for us. And then after lunch, switch to decaf. Now, folks, the half-life of caffeine in our body is about 5 hours. That means that coffee you drank, the caffeine you took at 5 p.m. is still at half strength when you go to bed at 10 p.m. And it's messing up our sleep. People say, well, caffeine doesn't bother my sleep. Caffeine doesn't make us not sleep. Caffeine makes it easier to stay awake and harder to have quality sleep. I got this from one of our Spec Ops docs. He teaches it across the community. It's a really good model. This is what we call the sleep line. When we fall asleep, we drop the sleep line. And this is a real simplistic model, but you get some deep cycle sleep. This deep sleep is magic. Amazing things are happening in that deep cycle sleep. Major tissue regeneration, neural network processing. And you know, one of the theories on Alzheimer's is what's causing Alzheimer's. During deep cycle sleep, we now know that the brain flushes the garbage out of the brain. If you never get deep cycle sleep, the brain never flushes that garbage out. Could that accumulation over time become Alzheimer's? That's one of the theories. So you get another shot of shallow sleep and then another shot of deep sleep. Wake up and take a leak, back to bed. One more shot of deep sleep and then go face the day. Now, if there's caffeine in your body, the sleep line moves. If there's caffeine, the sleep line moves. You wake up and roll over here, 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 and here, and you're not getting the deep sleep you need here, here, and here. That's what caffeine is doing to us. It's making us have bad sleep. Sleep is that little vacation that waits at the end of every day. Guard your sleep, protect your sleep, and use caffeine responsibly. You're doing a double shift, you're switching shifts, caffeine will be there for you if you use it responsibly. But folks, this sleep deprivation is an epidemic in our society to degrees never seen before in history. And we're paying a price in every direction for it. It undermines almost everything our society is trying to accomplish. Don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution. Pace yourself for the long game. We need four-quarter players, we need seasoned players. The bad guy will still be there tomorrow, yeah? The video game will still be there tomorrow, yes? Pace yourself for the long game. You deserve to live a rich, full life. The research keeps telling us sleep deprivation is taking years, even decades off our life. It's making us have bad quality life. We're grumpy, we're irritable, we make decisions we regret. Pace yourself for the long game. Sleep deprivation is a key factor in obesity. Sleep deprivation makes us fat 3 different ways. Number 1, all that extra time to eat. Yeah? Number 2, you eat stupid stuff. Yeah, you've taken the stupid pill. You eat stupid stuff. Your willpower's gone. But here's the biggie. Our body does not have a we need sleep hormone. Never needed it. It's got a dandy we need food hormone. About 1 o'clock in the morning, when the ordinary would be dead asleep, you get that incredible case of the munchies. You ever been there? 1 o'clock in the morning, you'd normally be dead asleep, you get that incredible case of munchies. That's the body saying something's wrong. Let's try food. Doesn't work. Now you're sleep deprived and you're fat. Yeah? And don't hesitate to go to the sleep lab and check for the sleep docs. One of the best things you can do, get a sleep checkup. Folks, a Navy SEAL E9, SEAL Master Chief, told me, he said I had 9 years of bad sleep. I had sleep apnea. I didn't know it. 9 years of bad sleep. The guys on the team always complained about my snoring. And finally, I went to the sleep lab. Oh, yeah. One night in the sleep lab. You got sleep apnea. Wear this. He said, the first night with that CPAP machine, the first good solid night's sleep in 9 years, he said, no sex I've ever had. No meal I've ever eaten. Nothing has ever happened in my life that was as good as that first good night's sleep after 9 years of bad sleep. For a guy like that, I think he's got credibility, yeah? Well, pace yourself for the long game, folks. And live that full, rich life. You deserve it. You've earned it. Once again, we're at the top of the hour, and it's definitely time for that 10-minute break. Urine levels down, caffeine levels up. Come back ready to rock and roll. Here we go, back in gear. Now, the next step in resiliency revolves around understanding what it is that happens to our body under the stress of combat. And those of you that have a copy of On Combat, if you're going to get one book, the one I would want you to have is On Combat. Oh, everything I'm teaching today comes out of there. By the way, I'm trying to remember to say this. They put together an online course, GrossmanAcademy.com. And I don't know who that Ugmo there is, but it's GrossmanAcademy.com, www.GrossmanAcademy.com. You get an e-copy of the book On Combat. You pick up 3 semester credit hours. It's a great online course, lots of videos, lots of info, dig in a lot deeper on this stuff we're covering today. We're just skimming the surface today. And the most important slide today is really this one right here. Those of you that have a copy of On Combat, I'd encourage you to turn to page 31. Turn to page 31 in On Combat and follow along. And down at the bottom of the page, I want you to underline, highlight, hormonal or fear-induced heart rate increase. This is the impact of adrenaline on your body. Now, critical concept up front, key concept. Do a set of wind sprints, vigorous physical exercise. Your heart is pounding at 120 beats per minute from physical exertion. Look in the mirror, how's your face look? Beet red. Your body is screaming for oxygen. Every blood vessel is wide open, pumping the oxygen where it needs to go. Now, you're scared, you're angry. Your heart is pounding your chest at exactly the same rate. Look in the mirror, how's your face look? It goes pale. This is called vasoconstriction. Your heart rate can be exactly the same. The impact on your body is exactly the opposite. This is called vasoconstriction. Underline, highlight that word. Most important word on that page. The idea of vasoconstriction. Now, the docs tell us it's in the pre-capillary stage. Just before the capillaries, there appears to be a mechanical shutdown of the blood flow. The arteries can be holding up to twice as much blood. The arteries in the body core is holding up twice as much blood, and the outer layer of the body, there's no blood there. That's why your face is white. Huh? Oh, what's it do for us? Well, number one, it really protects us from bruising. Bruising is when the capillaries in the veins rupture from blunt force trauma. If there's no blood, the capillaries in the veins don't rupture. But also, it protects us from bleeding out in the heat of battle. Yeah? Let's say you're fighting a wolf. He's chewing on your arm and you're keeping his head in with a rock. The wolf can practically shred that arm and not get to the artery. And you got a long, sustained, vicious, brutal battle. Finally, you're triumphant, you cave his head in, you saved your family, you won the battle, you saved your tribe, and then relax, and then you bleed out and die. The body will always backlash in the opposite direction. The wound that didn't bleed in the heat of battle will gush blood afterwards. You survived, you won your tribe, you won your battle, and then you died. But today we slap a tourniquet on the wound. We get to survive in the battle, and we get to survive after the battle. But watch for that. There can be a time after the trauma. I'll show you case after case. The wound that didn't hardly bleed in the heat of battle begins to gush blood. Be prepared for that. All right, so what's the price we pay for this wonderful survival mechanism? The muscles ain't getting blood. If the muscles don't get blood, they stop working. So initially, we begin to lose our fine motor control. You do not have a lie detector, but you have a stress detector when you shake somebody's hand. Their hand is cold, there's probably vasoconstriction. It could be a stress response, and their handwriting would be sloppy. It gets worse and worse, and you begin to lose your complex motor control. The vasoconstriction gets worse and worse, and you're in a catastrophic realm that we call condition black, also known as panic. Now, we want to live our lives in condition yellow. Condition yellow is a state of mental readiness. You're prepared, you're ready, and the bad stuff comes down, you're not stunned, you're not surprised, you're ready. You pop up condition red, you rock and roll. Now look what we gain in condition red. Optimal survival and combat performance levels, complex motor skill, visual reaction time, cardiac time, all the highs. Are those good things? Sure, what's the price you pay for those things? Some loss of fine motor control. But we can partially compensate for that with training. Let me give you a sports example. Basketball players out on the court. Basketball players rocking and rolling the court because he'd done 100,000 shots in practice. He shot left hand, right hand, moving in, moving out, moving left, moving right, and again makes that snapshot. Good, 1,000 shots like in practice. But give him 5 seconds, make a free throw. His approach is completely different. Study basketball players making free throws. We got battery out here. Study basketball players making free throws. Watch what they do. They're like a sniper. They're like a sniper. They're using their breathing. The basketball player is pulling himself down to condition yellow. He pulls himself down to condition yellow. He regains fine motor control. The basketball player pulls himself down to condition yellow. He regains fine motor control. He pops back to condition red. He rocks and rolls. The point man on the entry team goes in the door in condition yellow. Somebody pops up and starts shooting at him. Now he's a basketball player making a snapshot. He pops up to red, he rocks and rolls, he comes back down again. Now, thank you, bro. Well done. Hey, your surgeon here your doc here is doing amazing things, and give him a hand. He made it happen. A lot of you guys have thanked me for coming here, but he made it happen. I go where I'm asking. He's an amazing warrior. He's got a great warrior spirit and a good man. So, folks, what kind of people on the battlefield have to live in condition yellow? Must never lose fine motor control. The worse it gets, the calmer they get. Pilots. Can we all agree on that one? My helicopter pilot loses fine motor control on a close approach on a hot LZ. We're all having a very bad day. How does a pilot's voice sound coming over the radio? Calm, bored, monotone, huh? And the worse it gets, the calmer they get. Houston, we have a problem. Yeah? How about this one, huh? We're going into Hudson. Yeah? They found out the hard way in 10,000 dogfights and 50,000 aviation emergencies. If you can't control your voice, you can't control your hands. And if you're a pilot in emergency, you're going to die. If you can't control your voice, you can't control your hands, you're going to die. What you're hearing is condition red when you hear that stress in their voice. I tell my cops, when you got a lawful, legitimate, high-speed pursuit, you want to decide whether or not that'll make the pursuit. First thing you do is listen to the voice coming over the radio. A fighter pilot, a test pilot comes over the radio in a high-speed pursuit, you're good to go. Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, a 5-year-old girl comes over the radio, they must be pulled off the pursuit. Yeah? Who else needs to live in condition yellow? Snipers. Bomb techs. Folks, I teach bomb techs around the world, and my bomb tech loses fine motor control. While defusing a bomb, he's having a very bad day. Yeah? And docs. Had the honor to train our PJs and elite medics and docs across the board. My doc loses fine motor control. While my life is slipping through his hands, I'm having a bad day. Yes? In all these cases, the breathing I will teach you is a powerful tool to keep them in the zone. But leaders, can we all agree that military leaders have got to remain calm in the heat of battle? When things are going to hell and people are dying, our leaders have got to remain calm, yes? That's why warriors do not respect leaders who blow their cool. We're all human, we all blow our cool sometimes. When it happens, you know you made a mistake, try to do a better job the next time, yeah? And most of us, as we get older, we get better at that. That's why most of us make better grandparents than we did parents. How many of y'all got kids? How many of y'all got kids? You ever look at your parents with your kids and said, are you the same ones that raised me? No, they're not. They're at least 20 years old or more mature. It's called maturity. We want to get it as fast as we can. A conscious decision to control your emotions. I got to shout and kick and get their attention. No. We are what we practice to do. And if you practice blowing your cool, and nobody's impressed by our hissy fits, folks. They're impressed by our calm. And if the day-to-day pissant things make us blow our cool, when things are going to hell and people are dying, it can be very hard to maintain that calm that we need. And I believe the next step in resiliency is to nurture an environment of calm warriors. The screaming, the anger, the hissy fits, all that does is put us on an adrenaline roller coaster and a counterproductive leadership style. You understand? So live our lives in condition yellow. But condition white is for sheep. Condition white is a state of active denial. And you're going through life in la-la land in condition white. And the bad stuff comes down. You bought yourself a Deluxe first class one-way ticket to condition black. Do not pass go, do not click $100, go straight to Panicsville. Every grass eater has two speeds, graze and stampede. Yeah? denial and panic. And it's denial that traps us. Embrace the profession of arms. Dedicate yourself. Find ways, find hobbies that reinforce your survival skills. And at the moment of truth, whatever happens, you live with yourself. Denial traps us. When the bad stuff comes down, we got that deluxe first-class ticket to Condition Black. Now let's study Condition Black. That's the goal today, is to study this toxic realm called combat. And one of the first things that happens, cognitive processing deteriorates. That's a fancy pants way of saying, you stop thinking. I'm going to put a model up here. We're going to come back to this model for the rest of the day. When we talk about PTSD, we'll come back to this model. We do our final exam, we'll come back to this model. Stay with me here. First, we got the part of the brain that we're going to call the forebrain. Inside the forebrain goes everything that makes us human. What are the things that happen in your head that will never happen in your dog's head? Let's call it rational thought. Rational thought. Now, lie underneath the forebrain is a part of the brain we call the midbrain, or the mammalian brain. Just get you oriented. Here's our little beady bloodshot eye looking out this way. Inside the midbrain goes everything every living creature has in common. What do you, your dog, and the bacteria in your body have in common? Forgive me, there's a joke. A classic old joke in this 1950 psychophysiology textbook. I recently saw the same one word for word in a modern textbook. The function of the midbrain can be thought of as the 4 F's. Now 4 F's are fight and flight. Yeah, fight, flee, food, and reproduction. Every living creature does these 4 things. You, your dog, the bacteria in your body are capable of these 4 things. The interaction between the 4 is fascinating. Now folks, I've been on the road for 18 years. I got seasoned old sergeants who knew me as young rookies, and they come to my presentation on a steady basis and constantly updating. And people trust me, and they know me, and I get a depth of information. I ask questions other people won't ask. My fire guy tells me, brutal, desperate, 4-alarm fire, finally put the fire out, finally get home at the end of the shift, and cops said, knock down, drag out fight, cuffed them and stuffed them, finally get home at the end of the shift, and cops say gunfight, bad guys down, I'm alive, finally get home when it's all over, and they all say, the best sex I've had in months. Both partners are very invested in some very intense sex. There's nothing wrong if it doesn't happen. There's nothing wrong if it does happen. Is it the affirmation of life in the face of death? Is it a hormonal surge? We don't know. But there's not a whole lot of perks that come with this life. You find one, relax, and enjoy it. Off duty, wait. But folks, biology is not destiny. If there's no appropriate sexual partner, biology is not destiny, and this stuff won't blindside us if we're warned of it. You understand? If we're warned that this thing can happen, it won't blindside us if there's not an appropriate partner. Yeah. So this business of the forebrain, shut it down. Here's the key factor. This is what it's all about. When we become angry, when we become frightened, the forebrain shuts down. And the midbrain, the part of the brain, same as your dog, reaches up and hijacks the forebrain. There's no rational thought of that person's head. Have you ever tried to have an argument or discussion with a truly angry, frightened person? You can't do it. The more angry, the more frightened, the less rational they become. You know why you can't have an intelligent conversation with a frightened, angry person? Because there's nobody home. You're trying to argue with the dog through the mail slot. Ain't nobody home with the dog, give it up. With a human being, we got to calm them down first. Food is a tool to calm people down. The puppy can only do one thing at a time, and talking over food is very powerful. Folks, the breathing exercise I will teach you is a tool to calm yourself and others down. But I want to give you a trick, and I want you to put it at the top of your little bag of tricks. It's taken off in the therapeutic world like a grass fire. Whenever you have somebody angry, anxious, frightened, upset, including yourself, make them stop and take a big swig of water. You will be amazed at how well it works. Now, in a nutshell, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is when you cannot separate the memory from the emotions. Every time you remember it, you relive it. We want you to remember it. We don't want you to relive it. So folks, starting in 1988, I began interviewing World War II vets, Korea vets, Vietnam vets. And I knew if they became emotional, as they talked about it, something counterproductive was happening. Now, it's one thing to feel sorrow for your warriors who've gone. The World War II vet goes to Normandy Beach, and 60 years later, there's tears in his eyes. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you remember the incident and you become physiologically aroused and your heart is pounding, and that's a different deal. And I'd make them stop and breathe and regain control. Because the path of healing is to separate the memory from the emotions. Got to make them stop and breathe. Now I put that bottle of water in front of them. A friend of mine is a therapist who specializes with law enforcement. Does the surgeon who treats your gunshot wound have to be shot to treat your wound, huh? No, you can't treat my wound. You don't know what it's like. That's baloney. And I'll tell you what, the doc who helps you with the psychological issues not have to experience what you did to be able to help, yes? Yeah? You've never been there, you can't understand. That's bull. That's just copping a pity party. So folks, this lady's one of the great leaders in the field of training, helping law enforcement and therapy and working with them. And she said 6 years of college, 17 years of practice, and that stupid bottle of water is doing more good than anything I've ever done. So it appears to be working for two powerful biological reasons. A deer's being chased by a wolf. Does he stop and get a drink? He's really thirsty. I can't get a drink. I'm being chased by a wolf. The fact that you stop and take a drink sends a message to the puppy. Whoa, we're taking a drink. We must be safe. It really does work that way. It puts in the clutch and puts the puppy in a different gear. But it's also a natural way to get people to breathe. Study what you do when you take a drink. You take a deep breath, you hold it, you let it out. Huh? You cannot take a big drink without taking a breath. I do not do counseling, I do not do therapy, but I have had the honor to debrief an awful lot of people about very traumatic events. And today, just setting that bottle of water is important. My cops, I tell my cops, let's say you got a citizen who's a victim of a crime, and you're doing a witness statement. If that citizen becomes emotional, A, you're not getting the calm, rational statement you need. B, they're moving down the path of mental illness. They're beginning to associate the memory with the emotions. You set that bottle of water in front of them. Just the power of a gift. Bottle of water, a cup of water. And every time they begin to lose it, make them stop and take a big, hard drink. A, getting the calm, rational statement that you need. B, you're teaching that person one of the most important lessons anybody can ever learn. I can separate the memory from the emotions. So the whole dynamic is there. But let's look at a few other things happening up here. A few other things happening here in condition black. Loss of peripheral vision, loss of depth perception, loss of near vision. You're losing fine motor control. Is it really any surprise one place fine motor control goes is the eyes, huh? Here's where it gets really interesting. Auditory exclusion. How many of you knew for the vast majority of people in combat that shots get quiet? Now help me out, I need your help here. How many hunters we got here? Where are my hunters at? Raise your hand, be proud, be proud. All you hunters, help me out. You ever notice something? Take your hunting rifle to the range. Fire one shot at the range without hearing protection, your ears are gonna ring. Go to drop a deer. It's a still, calm morning. Boom, your shot echoes across the valley. People a half mile away hear the shot. Hunter, what do you hear? Nothing. Most people hear nothing. Some people hear pop and your ears don't ring. Help me out. How many people experience what we're talking about? Come on, help me out. Yeah, that's a response to shooting a deer. A similar response would happen if the deer were shooting back. This shots get quiet in combat and you need to know. So folks, it was going on 18 years ago now when I first started the road. A state trooper came up to me, he said, now I understand. He said, so embarrassing, now I understand. He said, me and my partner on a one-car roadblock. This guy blows the roadblock 100 miles an hour. We both fire a shot from our pistol, leap out of the way. I get ready, I call the Sarge. Sarge, he's blowing the roadblock. Sarge says, pursue. Sarge, we can't pursue. Why not? We got bad ammo. They thought there was something wrong with their ammo because they couldn't hear the shots. Now, I want you to think about this. 500 years of gunpowder combat. 5 centuries of gunpowder combat. And 2 state troopers fail to pursue a fleeing felon because nobody told them the least stinking thing about what it's going to be like in combat. Why are we just now learning this stuff after 500 years of gunpowder combat? Because we get pushed so hard. We got to be better and better and faster to stay where we are. But also, you can't learn this stuff in peacetime. Shame on us, we've been at war for 14 years, we ain't learned nothing. And the fact that the shots get quiet is the tip of the iceberg of the kind of stuff we need to learn. So real quick, I want to outline to you 2 of the things that I think are some of the most powerful and important revolutions we have learned in 14 years of war. Number 1, sports psychology, performance psychology does work on the battlefield. Now this is big. 1990s, early 91, 92, I was a West Point psych professor. And the generals use us as a think tank. You know, you're our smart guys with these shiny new degrees. Tell us smart stuff. Give us neat ideas. We said, well, look at all this sports psychology, this performance psychology. We had to use this stuff in combat. And the generals had a good answer. No. We don't know if this stuff works. For all we know, just because it works in a football game, it might get you killed in combat. Just because it works in a stupid game doesn't mean it works when somebody's trying to kill you. We truly had to be very, very careful about applying this stuff because we didn't know. Well, after 14 years of war, we have systematically experimented. And we can now tell you without a doubt it works. And this is huge. To be able to strip mine the multi-trillion-dollar field of sports psychology, yeah? So, folks, that's one of what's going on. And I got a couple of books I commend your attention. I helped author a book, Warrior Mindset. And my co-author really did all the work on this one. Dr. Mike Askins, one of the great experts in the field of sports psychology, pro ball teams, Olympic athletes, especially the field of mental toughness skills. And we put that stuff together and tailored it for warriors to apply, and a great resource. The best book I have read in 30 years. If I could steal one book on the planet, put my name on it, call them the next book, this would be the one. They're a husband and wife team that wrote the book. They're both world championship shooters. They're both hunters and hunting guides. He's a combat vet. They're law enforcement trainers. You could use this as a performance psych textbook. It just covers every aspect of performance psych, but for everything it teaches, it gives a military example, a law enforcement example, a hunting example, and a competitive shooting example. Just this amazing piece of work that shows this revolution that's happening out there. All right, so one of the things that's happened in an amazing leap forward in performance is that sports psychology. But let me show you another one, and we're going to work with this for a little while. We have learned the value of stress inoculation. Now, folks, we can help somebody afterwards, but we'd far rather be vaccine than penicillin, yeah? A handful of vaccines worth a carload of penicillin. To know these things ahead of time, to be inoculated against them ahead of time. So, if you're a firefighter, ready to face in training. Firefighter, what do you got to face in training? Red burning alley, red fire. We all intuitively understand we can't train the firefighter for a lifetime with flickering red lights, a fan, and some red tissue paper, yeah? What do we have to face? Real burning alley bullets. Our paint bullets, simunition type training is one of the greatest revolutions on the battlefield since the invention of gunpowder. Now, folks, one of the inventors of simunition, a guy named Ken Murray, wrote a book called Training at the Speed of Life. And I had the honor to write the foreword to the book. It's a great resource, this reality-based training, this force-on-force training, but you're holding a real gun in your hand. A real gunpowder projectile comes out the barrel, the flash and the bang, smell of gunpowder, all that's important. What leaves the barrel is not a chunk of lead, but a plastic marking capsule. It leaves the barrel at 350, 400 feet per second. If it hits you in the hand, does it hurt? That's good. Pain, good. Firefighters got to encounter real Bernie Alley fire. We have to encounter real Bernie Alley bullets, yes? So folks, airsoft is good, by the way. Paintball is good. Airsoft and paintball is something you'd be doing right now. But the paint bullet force-on-force training is the gold standard. And I want to cut right to the chase. I could talk about Denver PD, Toledo, Ohio, amazing examples of huge leap forward in performance. Cut to the chase and go to NYPD. NYPD is 35,000 gun toters with live ammo combat patrol every day. Now, when an organization of that size shows significant change in performance, it is statistically significant at the very highest level. NYPD does in-service training across the whole department on paint bullet, simunition type force-on-force training. The following year, they fired half as many shots, and they get 3 times as many hits. They're not perfect, they still have some bad ones, but 3 times as many hits with half as many shots. What's that tell you? A quantum leap forward, a major multiplication in performance. Now, NYPD Academy has always been 40 hours of firearms training. At my academy, it was 40 hours of firearms training as a cop. Today, their academy is 80 hours. The traditional 40 hours and then 40 hours of force-on-force scenarios. The state of New York believes they are negligent to give anybody a firearm and not give them this force-on-force training. So let me cut to the chase and give you a case study, make it come alive. Orlando, Florida. A mom parks her minivan in the garage and leaves 2 little kids in the van while mom pops in the house. Armed home invaders take mom hostage. One of the little kids in the van picks up mom's cell phone, dials 911, mom's cell phone in her purse in the van, dials 911, and said, "Bad guys got my mommy." Well, the police are responding, and one of the responders is Jennifer Fulford. If Arnold Schwarzenegger shoves his head in the van and says, "Come with me, kids," you'll peel him off the ceiling. One of our female warriors says, "Come with me," good chance they will. It's just something they bring to the table the guys can't. So Jennifer said, I'll pop in there and get the kids. As she goes in the garage from one direction, 3 armed home invaders come in the garage from another direction. And the gunfight that follows is going to catch Jennifer in a crossfire. Let's say that empty seat is the left rear fender. That empty seat is the left front fender. Jennifer's left by the driver's side door. One bad guy behind cover using the left rear fender, another guy using the left front fender. Bad guys behind cover, trapped in the open, caught in a crossfire. Jennifer's shot 10 times. 3 bullets are stopped by body armor equipment. 7 bullets penetrate her body. Early on in the gunfight, Jennifer's right arm is disabled by a bullet. She drops to the right hand, picks her left hand, and kills SOB the shooter. It's only fair. Non-dominant hand, one-handed, sucking up slugs, precise, accurate fire, game over. While the other one's sinking slugs in her, Jennifer does a left-handed, one-handed reload under fire and kills the second one, precise, accurate fire, game over. Third one, wisely, runs like hell, later surrenders. Jennifer's shot to bits. Both legs are pretty much disabled. One arm is disabled, propped up against the wall, got about one functioning limb, been shot 7 times, dead and dying bad guys, screaming kids, gun smoke, shell casings. This whole gunfight took seconds. As fast as you can burn 2 magazines at rapid fire. That's how long it took. Another cop was just second finder, come rushing in, gun in hand, said, "Jennifer, you okay?" She said, I'm like, "No. Get me out of here." Steely calm, precise, accurate fire. Left-handed one-handed reload under fire. How do you do that? Well, Jennifer was in my class a year after the gunfight, fully recovered, and back on the beat a year after the gunfight. She got married 6 months after the gunfight. She says she's a glutton for punishment. Now, folks, Wyatt Earp needed Doc Holliday and 2 brothers to take out the 3 bad guys at the OK Corral. Jennifer did all by herself. Like most heroes, she's very humble, and she's got a very important point. She said, "I am a product of my training." She said, we did our paintball at Force on Force, and I was hit and hit and hit and hit, and it hurt. My trainer said, don't you stop. We don't teach you to die. We don't give you permission to fail. Keep going. They drilled me, and taking bullets and driving on, it hurt. They drilled me, and left hand when I reloads, and here's the magic words. When the real thing happened, it was less stressful than the first time I did it in training. When the real thing happened, it was less stressful than the first time I did it in training. That's inoculation, yes? Now, I'll tell you two other things that we're doing with inoculation. Dead people mess our cops up. So they should encounter dead people in a sterile environment of an autopsy before they see that horrible crime scene, before they see that horrible accident scene. And we send them to an autopsy with a checklist of information they're supposed to collect. And they pay attention. They have the detective brain on, and they're collecting that info. And if you can't handle a dead person in an autopsy, that first horrible crime scene, that first horrible accident, we're going to lose you. Yeah? But we inoculate them. Raw, pure animal hate. To be attacked. Is there a way we can simulate that? Yeah, with the dog. Our elite teams, our law enforcement nationwide, we wear the sleeve. The dog comes at you, raw, pure, I'm going to rip your throat out, and like it, aggression. Folks, the first time, it's a training environment, it's controlled. The first time, I'm an adrenaline junkie. I spent a lifetime chasing the rush. And the first time that dog came at me, it was like, whoa, what was that? It was every bit as much a rush the first time I went out in jump school, went out the airplane. The next time, no big deal. That's the way you want to be. Look raw, pure hate in the eyes of me, completely unbothered. Only way we can simulate that is with the dog. So you begin to get the idea of this inoculation type dynamic and how we apply it. But what I want to do now is talk about one more thing. We're going to come back to Jennifer Fulford. But let me talk about one more thing that appears to be happening in Condition Black. Voiding of bladder and bowels. Voiding of bladder and bowels. If you have a load in the lower intestines, extreme survival stress is probably going to go. Your body says, bladder control, I don't think so. Sphincter control, we don't need no stinking sphincter control. Blow the ballast, yeah? So folks, there's a major survey in World War II, one of the major surveys in World War II, approximately 20% of the veterans of intense combat in World War II would admit they messed themselves at one time or another. About half the veterans of intense combat in World War II would admit they wet themselves. These are the ones who would admit it. One old World War II vet told me one time, heck, Dave, all that proves is 80% were what? So he said. So it happened to him. We don't know what percent were liars, not for us to say. Let's go with 20%, knowing the number could be higher. But two questions. If it happened to them, could it happen to us? Or it could. I mean, it's less likely. I'll show you why. But why is the body doing this? I began to work with LAPD almost 2 decades ago, LAPD SWAT. At that point in time, LAPD SWAT's policy was try to give us 20 minutes. Okay, negotiations are broken down. Here's your 20-minute warning. What did LAPD SWAT do with that 20 minutes? They call it the battle crap. Your body will help. It's called stress diarrhea. Do it now. Later on, maybe it's called explosive stress diarrhea, yeah? Now, why is the body doing this? I do in-service training in hospitals. The emergency room folks, I ask them what ratio of traffic accident victims have messed themselves, and the numbers are pretty high. Why are you doing this? Well, here's what's happening. Inside every human body is a toxic waste site. Right down there in the lower abdomen of every human being is toxic waste. And it's under pressure. If there's trauma to the abdomen, that stuff will leak out and infect the wound. And prior to penicillin, any gut wound where that stuff leaked out and infected the wound was a guaranteed death sentence. A slow, hideous, horrible death sentence. It's very reasonable for the body to dump that toxic waste and relieve that pressure before a life and death event. Yeah? So if it ever does happen, don't be devastated, don't be destroyed. Tell you it's happened to at least 1 out of 5 of the kids in World War II. Chain your doors and rock on. One old cop said, yeah, and bag it as evidence. Could you see it in court, huh? Were you sincerely in fear for your life? Well, Exhibit A. We're not devastated, but we'd really rather avoid it. And the way to avoid it is right here. A great big heap and help and a stress inoculation. What we got going for us, those kids in World War II didn't have, is a stress inoculation. Actively, eagerly seek it and be prepared. All right, so let's go back to Jennifer now. What'd she do with those two home invaders? Kill them, made them dead, turn them to worm food, push up daisies. Meet your maker, DED, Arkansas dead. There's a dirty four-letter word out there the sheep don't want to hear. You will read 100 military manuals, never see this word. Kill. Dead. We engage the target. We neutralize the threat. We eliminate the threat. But we refuse to use those words, and that's denial. So we're going to embrace those words in a balanced manner. The first thing we tell the world, we don't want to have to kill nobody. We want to deter. We want them to not commit murderous acts on our fellow citizens. We want them to not plot to murder our children. It's so damned easy to be left alone by Americans. Leave us to hell alone and we'll leave you alone. And one of the greatest achievements around the planet is the attack that didn't happen. And you could make a pretty good argument that the reason why we have been attacked for 13 years, in part, is deterrence. The ultimate achievement, the attack that didn't happen. Now, if deterrence fails, now we're going to use deadly force. Now, in the law enforcement side of the world, and under the rules of engagement, in most situations, we're using deadly force to stop. Now, a lot of times we're not shooting to kill. If the mission was to kill, we walk up and execute all the POWs. If the mission was to kill, then if the doc saves the POW's life, he's thwarted your mission. Shoot the doc. Boom, boom, that'll teach you. Yeah. It is so stinking easy. Drop the gun, put up your hands. You else drop the gun, put up your hands. We'll walk up and provide the first aid to save your life. Yeah. Does that sound like the behavior of people with goals to kill? No. No, the goal is to stop. There are times, and there are appropriate times, and necessary and good times, when the goal is to kill. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the vast majority of the time on the battlefield, the goal is to stop. Stop what? The threat. What kind of threat? A deadly force threat, under the rules of engagement, an immediate threat to self and others. But given our current level of technology, the most effective tool we have to rapidly stop that threat is to place multiple doses of high-velocity lead in their body. An unfortunate side effect. An unfortunate side effect of multiple doses of high-velocity lead accurately placed in the human body is death. Now, folks, at the moment of truth, you haven't been in combat. Don't worry, you'll do the right thing. You've been conditioned. We'll pop up targets and simulators and realistic training. We've made killing a conditioned response, and you'll be fine. You'll be okay. But afterwards, you have to have acknowledged the reality of what is happening here and embrace that dirty four-letter word. And it's a good and necessary and right thing that people should take out the people who will launch these horrible attacks on our nations and try to destroy our way of life. And so we embrace those words in a balanced manner. Now, here's the key concept. The media always asks the same question. Well, we're conditioning people to kill. Our training is conditioning, operant conditioning, simulators and pop-up targets. We're conditioning people to kill. That's right, they're the greatest killers the world's ever seen. What's to stop them from using their skills on their own people? That's a very good question. Every warrior society has had to face this dilemma. We take our young warriors, we give them state-of-the-art tools to kill people. We send them to distant lands. We give them years of practice killing people. Now we bring them home. What's to stop them from killing their own people? Any warrior society that didn't crack that nut is destroyed by their own returning warriors. And every warrior society has found the same solution. Discipline, 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 discipline. Every warrior society has had distinctive haircuts. The Spartans had dreadlocks. The Romans were high and tight, probably best for hygiene. The Mongols had the forelock. The samurai had the top knot. The Brits were into the mustache. You ever seen the Amish? They grow a beard, but they cut off the mustache. That's because the mustache was a symbol of a warrior. And cutting off the mustache was a statement of being a pacifist. During the American Civil War, we were all about the beard, baby. Grant and Lincoln, we were the Taliban, baby. It was all about the beard. Then we went back to high and tight. It don't matter what your hair looks like. What matters is submission to authority. Whatever the hell the standard is, we enforce it. It's been fun to watch my Rangers since the war began. The war began 14 years ago, and the Rangers were all stamped out of the exact same cookie cutter. High and tight, super tight haircut, exactly the same. And then they began work with the Tier 1 guys. They said, grow it out, Roger out. Now cut it off, Roger out. Now grow it out, Roger out. Cut it off, Roger out. We don't give one hoot in hell what our hair looks like some flaky freaking fashion model. What matters is submission to authority. And whatever the hell the standard is, we enforce it. Because the difference between the sheepdog and the wolf is obedience. And you NCOs out there, this is sergeant's business. Whatever the standard is, we enforce it. And that's the safeguard. And don't let go of that safeguard. Hang on to it. Understand it is a very important place, yes? You don't like the standard, get the standard changed. But we enforce it, and that's the safeguard. All right, so what I want to do now in the final hour is forewarn you and forearm you about things that happened during the incident and after the incident. If I had anything of value to give you, we do have 1 hour left, right? Yeah. If I have anything to give you, my watch is still in the wrong time zone. I suddenly had a panic. If I got anything to give you, I'm saving the best for last. But let me give you one little nugget before the top of the hour. I've had so many people tell me this that I think we're wired this way. A sudden violent death. It could be a sudden violent death of a family member. A sudden violent death of a fellow warrior. And your first response is, that could have been me. Afterwards, you look back at yourself. You say, I wish that had been me. I would have laid my life down for that person. And my first response was a selfish one, to think about myself. Well, folks, I've heard this so many times when I dig in deep and the way people responded that I think we're wired this way. If you're in an airplane with a small child and oxygen mask comes down, what do you do before you put the child's mask on? Put your mask on first, yes? It's a fundamental law of survival. Before you can help anybody else survive, what do you have to do first? Survive yourself. This amazing survival machine, this incredible survival machine, the human brain is wired for survival. And when there's sudden violent death, the puppy says, whoa, that could have been us. That could have been us. Pay attention, huh? If that ever happens to you, I don't want you to be troubled by it. I want you to understand that it's an almost universal reaction, and there's nothing wrong with that. To be forewarned and forearmed. When you come back from the final break, we'll really put the last piece together, forewarn and forearm you what happens in the battle and after the battle. Tie all the pieces together. But once again, 10 minutes. Urine levels down, caffeine levels up. Copy. But what's it going to be like at the moment of truth? Somebody's trying to steal your life away. What's it going to be like? Well, we did some really great research. Dr. Alexis Artwall surveyed 141 cops about their experiences in combat. 85% shots got quiet. But 16%, the shots were loud. And even a guy from Arkansas figured out that adds at 101%. What's going on? Well, sometimes both happen in the same incident. Usually, you're ambushed. You're caught by surprise. Boom, 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 the shots are overwhelming. Go to return fire, the shots get quiet. Very often, we'll find a time in the middle of the gunfight, the shots got quiet, and it's almost always when you return fire. By the way, folks, you're still getting hearing loss. Just because you didn't hear the shot doesn't mean you're not getting hearing loss. Protect your ears. Don't grow up and be a deaf old geezer like me. The shutout is inside the neurons. The ear's still receiving it. We know that much about it as we try to study it and see what's going on. So tunnel vision, autopilot, doing what they're trained to do without conscious thought. Holstering, unholstering, without conscious thought. Folks, slow motion time. I am convinced the slow motion time is real. I have had hundreds and hundreds of people tell me they can see the bullet in combat. It's not like the Matrix where the bullet crawls past, but it's kind of like paintball where the bullet's slow enough you track it with your eyes. On several occasions, they could walk up and point to where the bullet hit. No way they could do that. They weren't tracking with their eyes like they said they were. Half of all trained, seasoned cops had memory gaps, blackouts, just blackouts. Gaps in your memory are freaky. After a couple of nights' sleep, some of this stuff will come back. You'll find that over time, some of this stuff will fall back into place. And maybe one of the most important ones to know about of all, memory distortions. 22% just flat remembered something that did not happen. Sometimes little tiny things, sometimes big things. Remember things that did not happen. What's another word for that? Hallucinations. So folks, it was one of our Tier 1 Spec Ops medics early in the war that asked me, he said, why did the wounded hallucinate so much? And why do they always hallucinate bad things? I'm paralyzed, I'm blind, I'm living it down, I'm going to fail, I'm going to die. He said, just once in the heat of battle, I'd like to see some wounded guy hallucinate something good. Yeah? Under stress, our mind is always looking at possibilities. Under extreme stress, and it don't get a whole lot more extreme than getting shot, what the mind examines as a possibility in your mind can become reality, yes? So set aside the fact that somebody's trying to kill you. Just set aside the fact somebody's trying to kill you. If you were sitting here right now, boom, diminished sound, tunnel vision, autopilot, blackouts, hallucinations, that would meet every definition of a psychotic episode. Just those things by themselves would scare the daylights out of you. So folks, let me give you an example of somebody who was forewarned. A young California Highway Patrol police officer, young CHP officer, the bad guy kills his partner, he kills the bad guy, and applies CPR on his dead partner. Now just don't get a whole lot more traumatic than that. He said, Dave, you cannot imagine how important it was in the middle of the gunfight to know that it's important to not hear my shots, to know that it's normal. He said, tunnel vision like a soda straw. He said, autopilot, holstering, unholstering, without conscious thought, freaky stuff. He said, slow motion time was real. And it was so stinking important to know ahead of time these things had happened. Memory loss, he had gaps in his memory. He said, afterwards, we did the debriefing. Now, the debriefings are important, they really are. And pilots are debriefed after every mission. We're going to debrief after every combat incident for the same reason, but also to begin the process separating the memory from the emotions. But what happened is he said during the debriefing, people talked about things I didn't remember. And I was okay with that. I knew that was normal. Folks, one of the worst things we can do is to pathologize behavior, to take normal things that happen all the time and make you think there's something wrong with you, to pathologize it. One of the healthy things we do is to normalize behavior and let you know that these things are normal. And those memory gaps, he was okay with that. And there were one or two things he thought he had done wrong in treating his partner, memory distortions. They said, no, man, that didn't happen. Now, folks, his partner was brain shot. His partner leaned in the driver's side window, and the driver shot him in the mouth. The bullet went in the mouth, hit the brainstem, it was lights out instantly. Then not a thing in the planet he could have done for that man. But he had these hallucinations of things he had done wrong in treating his partner. And the other guy said, no, man, that didn't happen. He said, if I didn't know those memory distortions could happen, I would have spent the rest of my life thinking they'd all conspired to lie to me, which is pretty bizarre, but it's only a hypothesis if you don't know that these things can happen. So it's so darn important to be warned. 500 years of gunpowder combat, and the fact that the shots get quiet is just a tip of the iceberg of the stuff we need to know. But we kind of get crazy stuff in combat. When crazy stuff happens after combat, that can scare the daylights out of you, yeah? So let's talk about the things, forewarn you about things that happen after combat. When you were a kid, how many times did you have to touch a hot stove? Hot stove, how many times? Just once. Unless you're from Arkansas, just once, yeah? You touch that hot stove, your heart rate skyrockets. The foreman shuts down, and the puppy blows a hole through the screen door. Little dog lives out in the front yard, punch hole the screen door, grabs you over the throat, pees in your lap, said, don't ever touch that stove again. Does it work? It's called one trial learning. Whenever there's fear and pain associated with learning, a powerful neural pathway, a pathway of neurons is established. Well, if you think a neural pathway was established from touching a hot stove, how much greater might it be from combat? Huh? Arkansas State Trooper, gunfight, bad guy's dead, he's alive. He says, a week after my first gunfight, I'm sitting up in the bleachers with my wife watching our daughter at a swim meet. What do you suppose pushed this guy's button? His daughter's pistol went off when I didn't expect it. Boom! My heart is pounding. I'm gasping for air. I'm drenched with sweat. His wife thought he's having a heart attack. It's not a heart attack. It's what we call a panic attack. A little milder anxiety attack, a little more intense panic attack, basically the same thing. The puppy's coming for a visit. When he's in that gunfight, that puppy blew a heck of a hole through the screen door. He was trapped in combat, and a powerful neural pathway was established. He didn't even know it's there. A week later, a random gunshot goes off. Here's the puppy saying, gunfight, gunfight, where's the gunfight there? This guy had two things working against him. Number one, nobody warned him this might happen. Number two, nobody taught him what to do. I warn you it might happen. I'm going to teach you what to do. And the goal is to separate the memory from the emotions. And the tool we're going to use, Alicia and the puppy, is the breathing exercise. Now remember, the shortcut to getting people to breathe is taking a big swig of water, yeah? All right, let me give an example of somebody who was forewarned. Major, a Midwest police department, a young cop comes up, he says, I'm a reserve Marine. He said, you trained our entire battalion before deployed. So these guys, I trained these guys, they were forewarned and forearmed, the best of my ability, before they went to Iraq. He said, we went to Iraq and we saw a lot of combat. We came home. Now, what I'm going to tell you about is sometimes referred to as flashbacks. In Hollywood and television and movies, a flashback is the wacko veteran hanging out the window shooting everybody. 14 years of war, 3 million veterans, not one of them has hung out the window and shot everybody. That's not how it works. And by themselves, flashbacks are not PTSD, they're normal. PTSD comes when you try to not think about it. You'll drive yourself crazy trying to not think about it. You got to make peace with the memory. So he said, I've been home from Iraq for a month. I'm out in my police vehicle out by the airport, kicked back and relaxed, and a military jet comes screaming in from behind me. No warning. Boom! He said, for just a second, I was back in Iraq. My heart was pounding and scrambling the back seat from my rifle. Not the pistol on my hip, the rifle that wasn't there. Then I remembered, dang, we were warned this might happen. Used my breathing, got her control, no big deal. Now stop there. We'll come back to our room, but stop. Very, very few things in this world scare us more than think we're losing our mind. Well, you're not losing your mind. All that's happening is neurons are firing. You don't want them to. You ever have neurons firing you want them to? That's what muscle cramps are. You ever get muscle cramps? Do they ever hurt? Ah, that hurts. Oh, I'm going to die. It hurts. I'm going to die. No, man. Muscle cramps. Work them out. Eat bananas. Get out of here. Muscle cramps ain't no fun. There's nothing to panic about. Having the puppy come visit ain't no fun. There's nothing to panic about. And usually you know what set up those cramps. But sometimes you might get cramps for no reason to identify. Usually you know what set up the puppy. But sometimes that puppy might come for no reason to identify, and that's okay. And anybody ever wake up in the night with muscle cramps? Sometimes the puppy comes in the night. You wake up with your heart pounding. It's no fun to wake up with cramps. It's no fun to wake up with your heart pounding. But it's nothing to panic about. Now, if you woke up every night for a month with muscle cramps, you'd see the doc, and the doc can help. You wake up every night for a month with your heart pounding, the doc can help. But just understand that these things are simple dynamics that are happening by themselves. They're not PTSD. How you deal with it will decide whether or not you're going to get PTSD. Huh? And you want to make peace with that memory, separate it from the emotions. So go back to my Marine. He said, a little while later, me and a bunch of my Marine buddies having a beer together. Folks, talking over a beer is very healthy. You're talking about it, and nobody sips beer. You quaff beer, yeah? You're talking about it, and you begin to lose it. You begin to get emotional. What do? You regain control, and then keep talking. That's healthy. To get drunk, then it's counterproductive. So he said, me and my buddies talking over beer, and I told him about the jet, the public visit. We all laughed. We had a beer. He said, one of my buddies said it happened to me. Real common one. He said, I've been home for less than a week. Old dark in the morning, dead asleep, in bed with my wife, and they emptied the dumpster right outside my apartment. Sounds like incoming artillery. He says, I wake up out of a dead sleep, heart pounded, roll off the bed, hit the deck. I'm scrambling under the bed for a rifle helmet that's not there. And I come up armed with my slippers. We all laughed. We had a beer. He said, one of my buddies said it happened to me, another real common one. He said, I've been home for a couple of weeks. I'm walking down a busy city sidewalk with my wife and kids. Heavy traffic in the street, cars parked by the curb, I'm by the curb, wife and kids. Something backfires loud, no warning. Boom! Next thing I know, I'm in the gutter, under a car. No idea how I got here. Look up, there's the wife and kids. It's okay, this is normal. Well, one, this might happen. You know, a guy told me one time, he said, a car backfired, he hit the deck, and I looked up, there's my little 3-year-old boy looking at me with big wide eyes. He said, I looked at my little boy, and I said, those are combat reflexes. They kept Daddy alive in combat. It'll take a while for them to go away. Yeah? So he said, we all had a beer, and we laughed. Then he said, one of my buddies said something really important. He said, you know, if we hadn't been warned this might happen, we wouldn't be laughing. Think about that. If we hadn't been warned this might happen, we wouldn't be laughing. Laughter can be cruel and inappropriate, but most of the time laughter is very healthy. And it says, this has no power over me. Laughter is a powerful tool. This simple says, this has no power over me. And being able to laugh about it is incredibly healthy. My son comes back from his first combat tour, living back in his old room on leave. My boys grew up with all this stuff. It's amazing that turned out all right. It did. But we talked about this over the dinner table. I had veterans for dinner and other scholars, and we constantly talking through every bit of the book, through all this stuff. And of course, my son had read the book before he deployed, both, especially on combat, most important. And so he gets up in the night to go to the bathroom, and his little brother has a poster of Yoda on the wall. For whatever reason, he sees Yoda, sees a bad guy. And he realized that I'm home, I don't have my gun, and it's Yoda, and it's okay. And his heart's pounding, you know. The next morning at breakfast, he said, Dad, it happened. The puppy came for a visit, just like we talked about. I saw Yoda, I saw a bad guy, went for my gun. He tells his little brother, hey, take Yoda down while I'm here, okay? He puts Yoda in his big brother's closet. It was sincerely funny. We could laugh about it. But it scares the daylights out of me to think about how we might have responded if he hadn't been warned. Huh? The generations who weren't warned about this stuff. Now, you've been warned it might happen. What I want to do is teach you the tool to leash in the puppy. And the tool we're going to use is the breathing. Now, I want you to understand why the breathing works. Your body divides into the conscious and the unconscious. Now, there's the things you consciously control and the things the puppy controls. What does the puppy control? Heart rate, blood pressure, digestion. What do you think? We control those things? Never know if you never try. Right now, everybody raise your heart rate to 200 beats per minute. Raise your blood pressure. And everybody give us some good stress diarrhea. Ready? You can do that? Good. Those are fight or flight responses. Those are things the puppy does. Your body divides into the things you control, the thing the puppy controls, and never the twain shall meet. But what's one that could cut either way? Your breathing. Your breathing is a bridge between the conscious and unconscious mind. When you sleep, if you had to consciously control your breathing, when you sleep, you die. Right? Everybody take a deep breath. Breathe in, breathe in, breathe in, breathe in. Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Let it out, let it out, let it out, let it out. Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. What'd you just do? You took a deep breath. You changed breathing from conscious to unconscious control. And you can control your blood pressure. You can control your heart rate. Here's a homework assignment. Next time, anytime you get a chance to sit around a blood pressure machine, Walmart usually has one in the pharmacy department. Sit down, take your blood pressure, see what it is, and then take 3 breaths. I'm going to show you. Take your blood pressure again and look at the difference. Just sitting there, you'll see a difference in blood pressure. Look, my dog's sitting there, tugging the leash. What's that mean? Sit. I'm already sitting. How much more sitting can I get? Yeah? Just sitting there, tugging on the leash, using breathing. You can see a difference. It's when the puppy takes off that the leash really comes in handy, yes? All right, so you understand why the breathing works. I'm going to throw one more little nugget into this thing. I'm a huge science geek, and I'm cynical. I got to see the research. I got to see it published in good journals and see it replicated. I'm going to tell you about something, and the research is there. A powerful body of research on something called mindfulness. Mindfulness is the scientific word for meditation. That's not meditation. What's supposed to do? Meditate my navel? Well, here it is. Here it is. As long as we're going to breathe, concentrate intensely on the act of breathing. Be mindful. Be intensely aware of your body. Be conscious of the lungs expanding and the air coming in, the air coming out. Of course, this stuff has been found to be enormously valuable with PTSD and with depression and other things. So the breathing by itself is incredibly powerful. We're using it with our Tier 1 pilots and spec ops, bomb techs and surgeons and kids that control test anxiety. Test anxiety is a test in condition red. And they teach people periodically to breathe and keep themselves in the zone during a test. Very valuable. So Mama ever tell you, Coach ever tell you, calm down, take a deep breath? Mama knows she was talking about. For our purposes, it's going to be 3 breaths. In through the nose for 4 count, hold for 4 count. Out through the lips for 4 count, hold for 4 count, again and again. And remember, as long as you're going to do the breathing, concentrate intensely on the act of breathing. Just be aware, mindful of what's happening. Here we go. In through the nose, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out through the lips, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. In through the nose, deep, deep, deep. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out through the lips, deep, deep, deep. Hold, 2, 3, 4. In through the nose, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out through the lips, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Simple exercise at a true revolution. Now, you get a chance, download the free app. It's an app that won an award for apps for troops to use in combat. And the app is the Tactical Breather, B-R-E-A-T-H-E-R. Check it out and explore the breathing a little bit more and see what's going on with it. We've got an amazing body of research on how this stuff is helped out. But what I want to do now is begin to talk to you about the great destroyers. Oh, let's go back to breathing. One more thing. Attitude is contagious. Can panic be contagious? Can calm be contagious? And your job is to be the rock of calm when all about you loses, blame it on you. Now, here's the heart of it all. We're using the breathing before the life and death event. LAPD, SWAT, FBI, HRT both tell me they stacked up outside the door, bag I don't know they're there. What's the last thing they do before they go in that door? They take that breath and they go in that door, condition yellow. Calm, competent professionals. Anything goes wrong, they pop up a red, they rock and roll, they come back down again. But they go in that door too excited. If they go in that door and amid the high condition red, Anything goes wrong, where are they going? Straight to black. So we're using breathing before the event, we're using it during the event. Bomb techs and surgeons and a state trooper. He said a guy pulled out a gun and started shooting at me. Out of the 100,000 people you walk past in a lifetime, one of them pulls a gun and starts shooting at me. He says, I went straight to condition black. I admit, this guy caught me completely flat-footed. I yanked my gun out, I'm shooting back, I'm spraying and praying. He said, the only good news is the bad guy was an even worse shot than I was. I dumped a magazine at this guy, my weapon's empty, my slide lock's back, and I did exactly what I was trained to do. There was good cover right there. I went to cover, did a mag change. I went to pop out. I thought, wait a minute, he ain't going nowhere. I got time for a free throw. I got time for a free throw. He said, all it took was one breath. Front sight, game over. Front sight press, right between the eyes. One of the best shots I've ever made in my life. He says, I accomplished more with one breath and one careful shot than spraying and praying a whole magazine. So we're using the breathing before the event, during the event, and when? After the event. For the rest of your life, if the puppy comes for visit, you now have a leash on the puppy, you must make the conscious decision to use the leash. See, here's the heart of it all. Here's the soul of it all. Controlling fear in combat, controlling fear after combat is the same skill. Just nobody warned you might have to do it. What's courage on the battlefield? Is courage the absence of fear? Oh no. Almost everybody in combat's very afraid. Courage is controlling your fear. It breaks my heart to see brave men and women, strong warriors, who would be brave in the battle, and they're blindsided after the battle. Because nobody warned them, they might have to be brave afterwards, yeah? So folks, you've been warned that this could happen. You've been given a tool to deal with it. But remember, no pity party, no macho man. If you can't leash in that puppy by yourself, don't hesitate to get help. Have confidence in your ability. Have confidence it'll work. And it will. But don't hesitate to get help if you need it, right? That balancing act. No pity party, no macho man. Well, in the final half hour, I want to talk to you about the great destroyers in the years after the battle. When we're old and weary, there appear to be a couple of things that weigh upon us. I worked with World War II, Korea, Vietnam vets. So many of those guys are gone now. And I presented to whole reunions and conducted surveys and presentations to veterans groups. And whenever I did that, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, they consistently tell me what I'm about to tell you is the most valuable thing I had to give them. World War II, Korea, Vietnam, they said this is the most valuable thing I had to give them. It's worth 5 minutes of our time. What do you think? I think maybe so. Thou shalt not kill, question mark. Whether we want it or not, we got an idea there might be God, it might be the God of the Bible. And all your life, you've seen somebody waving on a black book and shouting, thou shalt not kill. If that's all you know, and you have to kill somebody, you can kick your tail. So, folks, remember I told you we study people who do not get PTSD, Holocaust survivors and POWs. The one thing that they mentioned over and over again was their faith was a vital ingredient in the equation. A simple historical scientific fact. Some of the data would tell you that faith was the single most important factor. Now, if you're not wired that way, there's others skin that cat. But at the moment of truth, do not neglect your faith. And if you think even a little bit, you might be going to hell for the lawful use of deadly force that is not conducive to good mental health, yeah? So let me give you the rest of the story. It's World War II, and we killed millions of the enemy in World War II. We firebombed Tokyo and killed almost 250,000 people in 2 nights. We nuked cities, we wiped out whole portions. We killed millions of people in World War II, and the world would be a dark and desperate place today if we hadn't fought and won in World War II, yes? So let me ask you a question. Were all of our religious leaders in World War II a bunch of hypocrites? Did all of our pastors and priests and ministers and rabbis and chaplains, did they all preach, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not kill, the war begins, and they all changed their tune and said, okay, and kill these guys, it's cool. No, that's not what happened. 99% of our religious community for the last 5,000 years have believed the proper translation, the proper application is, you shall not murder. All the Jewish translations, original Hebrew, commandments, original Hebrew, all the Jewish translation translate, you shall not murder. Almost all the modern translation translate, you shall not murder. So folks, thou shalt not kill, come from the King James Bible, came out in the year 1611, 400 years ago. Want to stick with the 400-year-old translation? Go to King James in Matthew 19:18. Jesus is running through the commandments, translated for the Greek, a very precise language, and Jesus says, thou shalt do no murder. In your mind, is there a difference between what Jennifer Fulford did, killing those two home invaders to save her own life and to rescue those kids? Is there a difference between what Jennifer did and what the terrorists did in that school in Russia? You dang right there's a difference. There's all the difference in the world. One is the lawful use of deadly force to protect innocent lives. The other is a mass murder of children. There's all the difference in the world. And folks, to stop the mass murders of our children, to stop the people who commit these vile and evil acts, I tell you, is one of the best and noblest things that we can do. And there's all the difference in the world. And there's verse after verse in the Bible that outlines this. There's a whole chapter on combat that talks about it. Ultimately, Jesus said it best, greater love has no man or woman than this, that they give their life for their friends. And the men and women who go in harm's way to protect the innocent never received anything but the highest honor from 99% of our religious community. Now the Shakers, the Quakers, the Mennonites, the Seventh-day Adventists, they would disagree. They take that thou shalt not kill thing and run with it. Maybe they're right. But 99% of our religious community for 5,000 years have believed what you do is good and right and necessary. Now you may not need all that religious stuff, but you help somebody else get their head right. Everybody's got a Bible somewhere. Tap a couple verses. Help somebody get their head right. You ain't got a Bible? Steal one for the next hotel room you're in. Chaplain says he's got you covered. Chaplain's got you covered. All right, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. A lot of those guys, killing was hard. But a lot of those guys were 18-year-old kids, drafted off the streets. A few short months later, killed somebody that did them no harm. For a lot of those 18-year-old kids, killing was hard. But I am convinced, from a lifetime of study, if you properly prepare yourself, killing is just not that big a deal. For a mature warrior who's prepared themselves mind, body, and spirit for a lifetime, for a mature warrior who's killing somebody who represents a clear and present danger to others, it's just not that big a deal. There's no wrong way to respond to killing. There's many ways people respond, and they're all okay. If you could choose how you responded, I think you'd want to feel good about it. You stopped an imminent threat. You saved people's lives. The satisfaction of hitting the target and doing your job. Some people feel bad, they don't feel bad. LAPD brought me out to do their in-service day for the detectives. LAPD detective in-service day is 600 people. A crusty old LAPD detective came up. She said, Colonel, you're the first one in 20 years to tell me it's okay to not feel bad about killing those guys. Yeah? So for those who fully prepared themselves, it's just not that big a deal. But I can't tell you how many people have said, I had to leave some friends over there. I got to let go of them. And that's the hard part. Survivor guilt. When we're old and weary, it's our comrades that didn't make it the way upon us. The ultimate question, why me? Why am I alive and they're dead? And so folks, there's two ways we can spin out of control at the moment of truth. And listen, when a human being steals that life away, when a human being steals your comrade's life away, it's a totally different story. You tell me now, is there a difference between these two scenarios? Scenario one, a tornado hits your house and puts your family in the hospital. How do you feel about that one? Thank God they're alive. Scenario two, a gang hits the house and beats your whole family in the hospital. Now you feel any different? Can we all agree there's all the difference in the world? One's an act of nature. We don't take it personally. That was meant personally. One serial killer can paralyze a city. One band of terrorists can paralyze a nation. It's the fact that a human being chose to steal your loved one's life away that makes all the difference, you understand? And when somebody steals away your comrade's life, there's two ways we can spin out of control. One is inappropriate aggression towards others. Two is inappropriate aggression towards yourself. And so at the end of the day, we put two last pieces of Bulletproof Mind in place. Justice, not vengeance, and life, not death. And justice, not vengeance, simply says this: you have sworn a solemn oath to justice. Vengeance will destroy you. The Israeli research, the military research, the law enforcement research all tells us there's one action we cannot live with. Remember, PTSD is the gift that keeps on giving. One act most likely to destroy us and our loved ones is to commit a violent criminal act. Whoever we think we're avenging, whatever we think we're accomplishing, it's not worth the price of our spouse and our children. And folks, I've had the honor of training so many tens of thousands of magnificent warriors going back and forth from Iraq and Afghanistan over 14 years. Now, there was a time when they talked a lot about Abu Ghraib, that prison in Iraq, the photographs on the cover of Time magazine. Heard one young soldier call them the 7 idiots who lost the war for us. We didn't lose that war. Iraq is still hanging in there. But the 7 fools in that prison probably did us more harm than every terrorist on the planet put together that year. When those photographs appeared on the cover of every newspaper or magazine on the planet, yes? So you listen now, you listen. In a lifetime of virtuous, honorable service, you will touch thousands of lives. Positive echoes will ripple down across the generations from your service. But in one moment of stupidity, we can do more harm than every terrorist on the planet, yes? You let it be known throughout the land. You let it be known throughout the land. You don't want to play this game by the rules, then get to hell out of our game. And by the way, this is now a nationally televised game. There's no action we can engage in that will not be on CNN, YouTube, BBC, and Al Jazeera tomorrow morning, yes? Don't have to like it, got to accept it. There's cameras and umpires everywhere. We'll win this game, we'll win it by the rules. And there's too much at stake to lose it all because of some idiot, yes? And remember I told you swore a solemn oath to justice? Yeah, you swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution and obey the lawful orders of those appointed over you. That's justice. That's not the oath I'm talking about. There's another oath, an older oath, a deeper oath. An oath we swore from our youngest age, that oath that says everything it means to be an American. Let me remind you of that oath. You stay seated and help me out at the key point. You'll know when. Stay seated. Help me out at the key point. You'll know when. It went like this. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and for justice for all. We do not violate an oath we've taken from our youngest days without paying a profound price. Tell yourself right now, whoever I think I'm avenging, whatever I think I'm accomplishing, it's not worth the price of everything my spouse, my children, and what my comrades have fought and died for that can be harmed in one moment of stupidity, yes? So we dedicate ourselves to justice, not vengeance, and life, not death. And life, not death, simply says this: if I give my life to save your life, don't you dare waste it. Think now. You're calm and rational. Now's the time to think it through. If you're the one to die and your loved ones are getting on with life, you're dead. Everybody you care about is getting on with their lives. What do you want for them after you're gone? Happiness and joy. The fullest, richest, best life they can have. That's what you lived and fought and died to give them, yes? Now they're the one that died and you're driving on. They're dead. You're getting on with life. What do they want for you? The same thing. The fullest, richest, best life we can have. And that means right now you dedicate yourself to that full, rich life that was bought at such a price. And right now, you confront the possibility of suicide. You chew it up, you spit it out. Say, suicide? Hey, where the hell did that come from? I never eat my gun. Well, across our armed forces, we're losing more of our warriors from their own hand than we are from the enemy. And every one of them would have told you they never eat their gun. Their life come unglued, they did the wrong thing. Can we all agree on one thing right now? I think every living creature can agree on one thing. Nobody takes your life without a fight. Give me a sea of head nods on that one. We can all agree on that. No one takes your life, including you, without a fight. Tell yourself right now, I will fight for my life. I will seek counseling. I will get medication. I will leave no rock unturned. I will fight for my life like I would fight for my child's life, because no one takes my life, including me, without a fight. Burn it in your soul. I will fight for my life. I will seek counseling. I will get medication. I will leave no rock unturned. I will fight for my life like I would fight for my child's life, because no one takes my life, including me, without a fight. Burn it in your soul. At the moment of truth, your warrior spirit will guide you true. Now, at the end of the day, we come full cycle to the photograph we began the day with. And I want you to look at this young man with fresh eyes. Do you see the vasoconstriction in his face? If you've taken a blow to that left cheekbone, but you're looking about just about the best example of conditioned black you'll ever see. He's a giant of a man on his third trip down for the World Trade Center. Under ordinary circumstances, his face would be beet red like that lady's face. But there's a second competing demand upon his body. Something is screaming, danger, danger. Wherever there's a layer of subcutaneous fat, the body shuts down the blood flow. I don't think you'll hardly ever see a better example of conditioned black vasoconstriction. So here's the question now. I got a free copy of The Warrior Mindset. I held one book back to give away, whoever gets it right. And don't blurt it out, raise your hand. The question's very simple. What is not happening in that man's head? Raise your hand. You're first, bro. Bingo, there's no rational thought. As the blood drains from the face, good hands. Whoop, intercepted. As the blood drains from the face, the blood drains from the forebrain, there's no rational thought in that man's head. Can you accept that? I remember that. We'll come back to it. His name is Christopher Amoroso. Amoroso, remember that. We'll come back to it. By this point, on that awful day, 14 years ago, the smoke and the flames are so intense, they're leaping from those buildings in waves. The people who are there tell me the media never properly captured it. They were coming down from both towers. They were coming down from all four sides. Strangers are holding hands on the way down, comforting one another in their awful final seconds. It takes a long time to die from 90 floors up. Every second is filled with despair. The sky behind him is filled with falling bodies. The air above him is filled with smoke and flames. And the awful sound of those bodies hitting the sidewalk are echoing in his ears. Now, do you understand why it looks like that? What makes him different from the other two? What's he got to do that they don't? He's going back. He's going to drop off that pregnant lady. He's going to go back up that building a fourth time. The building will fall. And Christopher Amoroso will not come home with his wife and baby tonight and never come home again. Do we understand? There's no rational thought of that man's head. And nobody told him to go. Why does one man go up the steps again and again and again while thousands are coming down? Because he's a sheepdog. Because that's what he's trained to do. The forebrain shuts down, the midbrain takes over. You're a product of your instincts, your training. All that's true. But I want to give you the scientific solution to the question. Why will men and women die? Think about it. How do you get people to die? You can't order someone to die. What do? Kill me if I don't do it? When no one is watching, and folks, this suicide bomber always has people watching. There's always people who will know. They got that one down to a science. But in the heart of darkness, in the midnight of our souls, when no one will ever know one way or the other, why will men and women go toward their death? Here's what we know. In nature, the one place where the powerful natural instinct of self-preservation is consistently canceled out across many different species, can be seen in a mama critter. Across many different species, a mama critter who will die for one thing. What is it? Her young, her babies, yes? In combat, we know if we throw a bunch of strangers front lines together, men and women don't know each other, they don't care about each other. As soon as it's dark, as soon as people are dying, they're out of there. You put together a band of brothers and sisters, men and women who know and trust one another. They'll fight long and hard. Why? For each other. Audie Murphy's most decorated American soldier, World War II. Audie Murphy was asked one time why he did it. His answer was very simple. They were killing my friends. All this research revolves around one word. At the end of the day, I want to pull that word out and embrace it. There's a book called The Gates of Fire about the Spartans at Thermopylae. Marine Corps Commandant's required reading, The Gates of Fire. And it poses a question at the beginning of the book. What is the opposite of fear? What quenches fear? As water quenches fire. And the answer? Love quenches fear as water quenches fire. The mama critter loves her babies more than life itself. Audie Murphy loved his fellow citizens more than life itself. And Christopher Amoroso, he loves his fellow citizens, men and women trapped in those towers, men and women he's never met, more than life itself. Now here's the crazy part. The mama critter will die to save her babies. She won't die to save somebody else's babies. We say in our sheepdog children's book, the sheep may die to save the ones they love. Only the sheepdog loves enough to die for other people's loved ones. Only the sheepdog loves enough to die for other people's loved ones. You believe in who you are. You believe in what you do. For greater love hath no one than this. And we were not given a spirit of fear, but of love. Now here's the crazy part, folks. It absolutely blows me away. I've used this photograph of Christopher Amoroso for over a decade as a model of sacrificial love. Then somebody told me what the name Amoroso means. Amor is love. Amoroso is the lover, one who loves. Greater love had no one than this. But we wrap up the Sheepdog Kids book by saying they're not heroes because they die. They're heroes because they walk out the door every day, prepared to lay down their life. Sometimes the ultimate love is not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. To place the welfare of others ahead of your own. To walk out the door every day of your life. To do a dirty, thankless, dangerous task to the utmost of your ability, because you know if nobody does it, our nation is doomed. Not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. For most of us, therein lies the greatest love. And so I wrap up the day with one last model for action. Simple story about a young paratrooper who drew a line in the snow on Christmas Eve in 1944 in the Battle of the Bulge. There have been other dark hours, and I tell you, with all my heart and soul, we are approaching a dark and desperate time. There have been other Americans asked to make a stand. December 1944, World War II, the Battle of the Bulge. The Nazis had shattered a large portion of the American lines. The Nazi armored units are coming deep into our rear. Their goal was to cut back and capture the one fully functional deep-water port we had in Northern Europe. If the Nazis cut back and captured that port, they would cut off our supply lines. Millions of Allied troops would be trapped without food, without fuel, without ammo. The fate of the world, the fate of the war hung in the balance. The paratroopers from the 82nd and 101st Airborne Division were pulled out of reserve. And they marched day and night to form blocking positions on the little roads coming out of the Ardennes forest. And those young, elite, lightly equipped airborne troops, they had the authority and the responsibility and the mission to rally together the fleeing Americans and stop the Nazi advance, and that's exactly what they did. There was a photographer that captured the moment. An American tank is fleeing down the road, 30 tons of death running down the road with the Nazis on his heels. One young paratrooper standing beside the road. He's got hollow sunken eyes and 3 days growth of beard. He's got a bazooka slung over his back, carried a rifle by his side. He walked out in the snow in a helpless hand and he stopped the tank. He said, "Hey buddy, are you looking for a safe place?" The guy said, "Yeah." He said, "Then park your tank behind me, because I'm the airborne. And this is as far as the bastards are going." Now, do you understand how this story applies to you? For the rest of your lives, you will be faced with people who are fleeing. They're fleeing tyranny and oppression, terrorism, crime, violence, and the fear that lurks in the hearts of every man, woman, and child. And you have the authority and the responsibility and the mission to stand up and say, "Friend, neighbor, brother, sister, are you looking for a safe place?" They'll tell you, "Yeah, oh yeah." Then you tell them. "Then get behind me, because I am the United States Air Force, and this is as far as the bastards are going." And as you do that, for the rest of your lives, and God bless you, your family, your every endeavor. God bless America. Thank you. All right. Thank you, guys.